Screen Directors Playhouse. Screen Directors Playhouse, star Ray Milland, production The Uninvited, director Louis Allen. Hollywood Screen Directors present a tale for troubled midnights. The motion picture drama, The Uninvited, starring Ray Milland in his original role of Rick Fitzgerald.
I woke up. 5 in the morning. My skin creeping, my scalp crawling. I listened. I heard the dim surge of the ocean at the foot of the Devonshire cliffs not far from my window. Only 5 o'clock. And then I heard the dim surge of the ocean at the foot of the... I was sure now. I hadn't dreamed that appalling crying. Could it be my sister Pamela in the next bedroom? There was no electricity in this old house. I lit a candle. I went to the door leading into the upstairs hall. What? Oh, Pamela.
You heard it too, then?
What in heaven's name is it?
I don't know.
It comes from downstairs.
It comes from everywhere and nowhere.
I'm going down and search the place.
It's no use, Rick. There's never anything there.
You mean this has happened before?
All the time you were still in London while I was getting the house ready for us to live in.
Why didn't you call me or write me about it?
It's our home now. It's all we've got to live in. Sounds so terribly heartbroken.
But there must be some logical explanation.
It'll stop soon now. It always dies away at dawn.
No wonder we got the old place for such a low price. They tell me it stood empty for 10 years before... Oh, shutter blew open.
The dawn breeze. I must have forgotten to latch up.
Such a low price. They tell me it stood empty for 10 years before...
I know. The sobbing is gone.
Shutter blew open.
The dawn breeze. I must have
Is
forgotten
that
to latch up.
all for tonight?
Is that all? It's every night, Rick. And if I don't get some sleep, I'll die.
No. Don't do that. It'll be different tomorrow night. You'll see.
Is that all? It's every night, Rick. If I don't get some sleep, I'll die.
No, don't do that. It'll be different tomorrow night. You'll see. Oh, hello.
Aren't you the gentleman who bought this house for my grandfather?
Why, yes, good evening.
Good evening. I'm Stella Meredith. It was my mother's house.
Well, come in, Stella Meredith.
Thank you. I haven't been in this house since I was 3. And I've wanted to come so many times.
Then why didn't you?
Oh, my grandfather forbids it. He has some silly idea that I'm in danger.
Nonsense. You shall see the house, Stella Meredith, and I shall be your guide.
My grandfather forbids it.
Nonsense. You shall see the house, Stella Meredith, and I shall be your guide.
And this is my old nursery.
Like it?
How pretty your sister has made it.
That's very pretty perfume you're wearing.
It's mimosa. Do you like it?
Oh, very much.
This is my mother always used mimosa. She died when I was 3 years old.
That's very pretty perfume.
May I see the studio now where my father painted?
Only it's the studio where I play the piano now. You may even persuade me to play something for you.
Oh, don't stop playing, please.
Very flattering, thank you.
Don't stop playing, please. Father painted my mother's picture in this very room.
You don't remember that.
No. But Mother would sit on this platform wearing a soft white dress. My mother's picture in this very room. Sometimes, of course, he'd paint the other one.
Other one?
He had a model, you know, a Spanish girl. People seem to get awfully hush-hush when I try to ask about her, though. Sometimes, of course, when they know.
Other one?
He had a model, you know, a Spanish girl. People seem to get awfully hush-hush when I try to ask. You played beautifully.
It's a serenade to Stella by starlight.
You mean this, Stella? Me?
And this candlelight.
Oh, it's the most exciting thing that has ever happened to me.
Is Stella by starlight.
You mean this? Yes.
And this candlelight.
It's the
What's
most
the matter?
exciting thing that all at once, a cold wind.
Yes, suddenly it is cold in this room.
And your music's gone so terribly sad. Why?
I don't know, it just came out that way.
And the candles grew dim.
It was a drug.
Mother was so young and beautiful, and she died so cruelly. Mother!
Stella!
Mother!
Stella, come back! Stella!
And she died so cruelly.
I gathered my scattered senses and jumped up and ran after her. I passed Pamela standing amazed at the foot of the stairs.
Rick, what's the matter? What's happened?
There's something evil in that blasted look. Stella! I scattered senses and jumped up and ran after her. But she was out the front door, her dark hair flying, running wildly in the darkness, heading for the cliffs.
Stella!
I shouted after her.
Stella, come back!
Shouted again, pleading with her.
No, Stella, no!
The cliffs, I thought.
Stella, the cliffs!
The cliffs and the boiling sea beneath.
Stella!
Whatever sinister force had driven her out of the house was now driving her to destruction on those killing rocks. The brink was only yards away, a few steps. I reached for her, and my fingers caught in her belt, and I pulled her back. Back from the very edge of that awful precipice. Stella.
What's the matter?
Matter? You were going over the edge.
Was I?
Why did you do it, Stella? What drove you toward death?
Death?
Stella.
Why, nothing. I didn't feel I was in any danger.
Look below you. Why did you do it,
Oh,
Stella? What drove you
the sea.
Yes.
This is where my mother fell.
Your mother fell here?
By this dead tree. She.
Yes. Are you all right?
This is where my mother fell.
Your mother? Stella.
Will she be all right, Dr. Scott?
She's resting nicely upstairs, Miss Pamela.
Well, is Stella entirely safe up there alone?
Why not?
Well, in the light of what just happened.
You're the one who sneers when I say this house is haunted.
And everybody in the village knows the house is peculiar.
Look, can you tell us anything about it, Doctor?
Do you know about Carmel?
Carmel.
The Spanish model Stella's father painted.
Oh, yes.
Stella's father was in love with Carmel. It was an open scandal.
But didn't Mrs. Meredith know about it?
Well, I suppose she just accepted the situation.
Where's this Carmel now?
She died in this very house a week after Mary Meredith fell to her death from the cliff out there.
Oh, she did fall then.
Ironically, she fell trying...
Where's Carmel now?
She died in this very house a week after Mary Meredith fell to her death from the cliff out there.
Oh, she did fall then.
Ironically, she fell trying...
Where's Carmel now?
She died in this very house a week after Mary Meredith fell to her death from the cliff out there.
Oh, she did fall then.
Ironically, she fell trying to save her rival from committing suicide. Or so they say.
Rick, Dr. Scott, don't you notice a scent in the room?
No.
I do.
Yes.
It's heliotrope.
No, it's mimosa. Stella's mother was fond of it. Stella tells me that...
A scent in the
Pam, it's come back.
What, Rick?
Upstairs. Stella's not alone anymore. I know it. Come on. Stella.
Stella, are you all right?
I know it. Come on. Stella, darling. Now, don't be frightened.
Don't you know who it is in your house? It's my mother. Your mother.
Did you see her?
No. But when I woke up, I felt her in the room. Her scent, the mimosa, it was all around.
Did you see her?
I could feel her warm presence everywhere. And I felt something else. Something I've never known in my whole life. The knowledge that someone loved me very dearly.
You'd better take her home, Rick.
No. No, Mother is here. She wants me with her.
Your mother is dead, Stella.
I know.
But your grandfather will miss you. He'll be furious if he finds you here.
I know. No, Mother is here. I love it here. I'll always come back.
Another time, Stella. Another time. 3, 4, 5. There it was again. Her grandfather was right. There was danger in this house for Stella. In the studio, when we'd first felt its presence, I had not smelled mimosa. But in that moment before dawn, with that awful sorrow in the house, I suddenly knew. I knew that there was a cold, cruel spirit which hated Stella, and a warm, scented spirit that loved her. There was not one ghost.
You are listening to the Screen Directors Playhouse presentation of The Uninvited, starring Ray Milland in his original role of Rick Fitzgerald.
Pamela, I know this. Stella Meredith is in danger in this house. She mustn't come here anymore.
But she loves it, Rick. How can we possibly keep her away?
By holding a seance.
A seance?
Only this seance will be rigged. We've got to fix it so that the ghost of Mary Meredith appears to say, in effect, Stella, I'm your mother. Forget Windward House and I shall find peace and happiness. P.S. There is a tall, excruciatingly handsome man named Rick Fitzgerald who wants to marry you.
It's wrong, Rick. I won't agree to deceiving Stella.
We've got to break Stella of this attachment to the dead. We'll rig the seance. That very night, we held a seance. We all sat around a table. Stella, Pam, Dr. Scott, and I. A single candle was burning. On the table, I chalked the alphabet in a big circle, and the words yes and no opposite each other. An inverted wine glass stood in the center of the table. My stage was set.
I think the room is dark enough to begin.
The important thing is that we should all believe.
Yes, so I understand. What now?
Everybody puts a finger on the glass. Now, ask a question, Stella.
Is there anybody here? Is anybody...
The glass is moving.
Yes. The glass is on yes.
Go on, Stella.
Are you my mother? Yes. You don't want me to go away from Windward House, do you, Mother? They want me to stay away. Do you? Rick, let go. You're keeping the glass from moving.
I'm not.
Let go, I say.
Better let matters take their course, Fitzgerald.
All right.
No.
You see? She said no. She doesn't want me to stay away.
Look, the glass is moving.
I, G, U, A, God. I, God.
Guard me from what, Mother? What?
C, A, R, M, Carmel.
That's enough.
Who smashed the glass against the wall? You, Pamela?
No one, Rick. No one was touching it.
Stella's in a trance.
Stella.
Don't touch her. It may be dangerous.
May I ask a question?
No.
It might help to try to reach her mind. Yes, try it.
Whoever you are you Mary Meredith, Stella's mother?
No le sé, no le sé. No le cree nada. No le haga caso, está mintiendo.
This is awful. I won't ask her anything else.
Es ladrón. Ladrón de mi cariño.
Is that Spanish stuff?
I don't know.
Ladrón de mi cariño.
Stella.
She's fainted.
I'm afraid this has all been a dreadful mistake.
It was wrong. But she'll never be cured until this house is cured. Until then, Stella must never come here again.
I won't answer it.
I'll answer it. I'll go. It was Stella's grandfather, in a cold, bitter fury over her presence there and her condition.
An outrage, you hear? An outrage.
I'm very sorry, sir. It won't happen again.
I warrant you it won't. My granddaughter will never enter this house again if I have to lock her up somewhere. Come, Stella.
Stella was gone, but my work had just begun. I had to avert a tragedy. I had to solve the mystery of Windward House, but where to start? I went to see Dr. Scott.
Any luck, Fitzgerald? You find anyone with a clue to what really happened here 17 years ago?
No. Everyone who was here with the Merediths then seems to be dead.
The trained nurse isn't.
Trained nurse?
I've been looking through the old case book of my predecessor, Dr. Rudd.
No?
At the time of the tragedy, the Merediths employed a nurse for their child, a certain Miss Holloway.
Holloway?
Very, very much attached to Mary Meredith.
Well, is she alive? How can we find her?
She runs a place on Bodwin Moor called the Mary Meredith Retreat in honor of her long-dead mistress.
Hospital?
No, a mental institution. Strange woman, strange place.
Bodwin Moor. I think I'd better have a serious talk with Miss Holloway.
I shall be happy, Mr. Fitzgerald, to assist in any way I can concerning these manifestations at Windward House.
Well, to begin with, Miss Holloway, I know about the Mary Meredith Carmel triangle 17 years ago.
Yes, it was the delight of the local gossips.
What were Mary and Carmel like?
Extraordinary women, both of them. But Mary Meredith, she was a goddess. Even her talk was lovely and sparkling. Oh, the night we sat before her fireplace, planning our lives.
Yes.
She met her humiliation and her fate magnificently.
About Carmel.
A Spanish gypsy. Beautiful and crafty and cruel.
Why did Mrs. Meredith stand for the situation?
She felt the decision to end it must come from her husband.
Did it?
Finally, to make it easier for Carmel, they took her to Paris, found a position for her, and left her there. Then they came back here with their infant daughter. For a while, they were almost happy together.
Then?
Carmel came back. She still wanted Mary's husband. Then, one stormy night, Carmel had been told that she must leave, this time for good. Oh, there was a ghastly scene, and finally Carmel, in a rage for revenge, ran to the child's room and snatched her up and ran toward the cliff. Mary raced after her. In the struggle, Mary fell to the rocks below. The baby was unharmed.
What happened to Carmel?
She escaped in the storm. Next morning, she crawled back in the early stages of pneumonia. I had to nurse her.
I see.
And now, please, I must be alone. Please.
What you tell me about Miss Holloway is very interesting, Fitzgerald.
A fanatical, a dedicated woman, Doctor.
Dr. Rudd, before me, disliked her intensely.
Professionally? Personally? How?
Listen to this entry from Dr. Rudd's casebook for December 10th, 1932. Called to Windward House, Meredith's model, Carmel Quesada, double pneumonia.
Well, that tallies with what Miss Holloway told me.
December 12th, Carmel Quesada much worse. No attempt to warm her room. Found traces of snow in her bedroom.
Snow?
Spoke severely to Nurse Holloway. Absolutely criminal negligence.
Well, isn't that a pretty serious charge, Doctor?
When a man of Dr. Rudd's generation used it, it was very apt to mean murder.
Miss Holloway murdered Carmel?
She was very fond of Mary Meredith. Perhaps that's why Stella's grandfather sent her to Miss Holloway's for safekeeping this afternoon.
You mean Stella's there now? In that genteel madhouse?
Well, I venture she's safe with her mother's dearest friend.
Who was also guilty of criminal negligence? Oh, no. Dr. Scott, I must hurry. Be good enough to call my sister Pamela at Windward House. Say I'll pick her up in 15 minutes and call Miss Holloway, will you? Tell her to expect us. I'm on my way. Miss Holloway, when I was here before, why didn't you tell me that Stella was here too?
The presence of our guests is confidential.
Please take us to her at once.
She's no longer here. I sent her away when Dr. Scott called to say you'd be here.
But why?
She was the happiest person in the world when I told her she might return to Windward House.
Windward House?
But her grandfather sent her here to keep her away from Windward House.
She loves it so.
You knew we'd be away and you sent her there?
Mary will be there.
Oh, you hate Stella. You sent her to her death.
Mary is waiting for Stella.
You're insane. Hurry, Pam. It may be too late even now. We drove headlong through the rain, racing the train to Windward House. We arrived in the early hours of the morning. The house was dark. We were on time. Stella hadn't arrived yet. And then, from the inside of the house,
It's Stella.
the front door flew open and Stella ran out screaming fearfully, running for the cliffs.
Stella!
Come back! Something she'd seen or heard or felt in that horribly sick house of ours was sending her screaming in the darkness toward the windy cliffs. I ran after her, but she was very young and lithe and driven by fear and drawn by demons, and I overtook her slowly, oh, so very slowly, as in a terrible nightmare. And at the very brink of the cliffs, I dove for her and flung her to the ground, the very brink of death, the very edge of darkness.
Nothing but a few bruises, Stella. You'll be fine.
Dr. Scott, Rick, why would my own mother want to drive me to my death?
Darling, whatever drove you from this house couldn't have been your mother.
But it was. I saw her. It was a kind of a mist that glowed softly in the dark, coming toward me, just as my father painted her.
Why did you run away?
I don't know. Something terrified me, drew me to the cliff.
Could the company endure one more excerpt from the case book of Dr. Rudd? It's rather worthwhile.
You've the air of a man with knowledge, Scott.
This entry is dated a little more than 3 years before the final tragedy on the cliff. Meredith consultation, my office. Mrs. Meredith afraid she is going to have a child. Assured her she was not. A strange, cold, loveless woman refusing motherhood.
But
Meredith, poor man, wanting a child so desperately.
But there's Stella.
Now, listen. An extraordinary household. Carmel, the Spanish girl, worships Meredith. A lovely, pitiful creature, all love and womanhood.
Pitiful?
What does it all mean?
I don't understand.
Stella, where were you born?
In Paris?
Where they took Carmel. They came back with their baby, or at any rate, someone's baby.
Rick.
The Meredith stayed in Paris for a baby to be born, yes. But I think to Carmel, not Mary. They took the baby as their own to avoid a scandal. That's why Carmel came back, to be near her baby, near Stella.
Then it was Mary Meredith who hated Stella, her rival's child.
Mary Meredith, who tried to throw the baby from the cliff and fell to her death.
And that's what Carmel waited here to tell me all these years. That she was my mother, not Mary Meredith. I'm Carmel's daughter.
Rick, the mimosa.
She's here.
Oh, Mother, Mother, never weep again, because now I know. Never cry again in this house where Father loved you. Carmel, Mother. She's happy. Mother's happy. She's at peace at last.
Rick, look.
That's the mist I saw.
Mary Meredith.
Dr. Scott, Pamela, get Stella out of here. I was alone. Alone with the thing that drifted and floated in menacing, gesturing filaments in the open French doors. A luminous mist becoming a face that undulated horribly. A face filled with hatred and malevolence. And I lifted the candelabrum with its flickering, guttering candles. Come on, you icy fraud. If it's Stella you want, you're too late, Mary Meredith. You've tried enough to destroy Carmel's child. So much for the legend of your saintliness, and you can go along with it. Here, darling.
Are you all right?
All right. I am magnificent.
It's so dark, darling.
Never brighter.
Mary Meredith.
Gone forever.
And I always thought she was my mother.
What? Good saints preserve me from ghosties and ghoulies and long-legged beasties and a future mother-in-law like that.
Ray Milland will return in just a moment. Next week, as always, another great star recreates one of her most memorable roles on Screen Directors Playhouse. Our story is The Spiral Staircase, and our star, Dorothy McGuire, with screen director Robert Siodmak. Now, here again is tonight's star, Ray Milland.
Thank you. The film version of The Uninvited was distinguished by ghosts, gasps, moans, groans, and a very brilliant gent named Lewis Allen. Lou directed the picture, furnishing the assorted horrors out of his bag of tricks. Since then, we've done 3 other films together, and his amazing know-how still has me fascinated. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet him, my director, Lewis Allen.
I hardly think I deserve those compliments.
Why not?
Well, The Uninvited was the first picture I ever directed.
But Lou, you'd been directing stage plays for years.
But when I sat behind those cameras for the first time, I was as scared as the audiences who saw the picture.
Well, how do you feel about cameras after all the pictures you've made since then?
They still scare me.
You know what?
What?
They scare me, too.
Well, at least we weren't scared of the ghosts and the uninvited.
Well, you know, Lou, you made everything so real, for a while I almost believed in them myself.
But, Ray, there's no such thing as ghosts.
Lou,
Yes, Ray?
what did you just say about ghosts?
I'd rather not talk about it. Good night, Ray.
Good night, Lou. Good night, everyone.
And good night to you, Ray Milland and Lewis Allen. Remember next week, Dorothy McGuire and Robert Siodmak. The Uninvited was presented through the courtesy of Paramount Pictures, whose current release is the William Wyler production, The Heiress, starring Olivia de Havilland, Montgomery Clift, and Ralph Richardson. Ray Milland will soon be seen in the Paramount picture, Copper Canyon. Lewis Allen's current production for Paramount is Chicago Deadline. Included in tonight's cast were Alma Lawton as Stella, Norman Field, Mary Shipp, John Daner, Georgia Backus, June Foray, and Dan Riss. The Uninvited was adapted for radio by Milton Geiger, and original music was composed and conducted by Henry Russell. Screen Directors Playhouse is produced by Howard Wiley, with dramatic direction by Bill Karn. Portions of the program are transcribed. This is Jimmy Wallington speaking, inviting you to listen again at the same time next week, when we present
Screen Directors Playhouse, star Dorothy McGuire, production Spiral Staircase, director Robert Siodmak.
Sunday on Hollywood Calling, you may be called by motion picture stars Maureen O'Hara and Dan Daly to win a wonderful prize and crack the Film of Fortune jackpot. Make a note to stick close to your radio and your telephone Sunday for Hollywood Calling. It might be your lucky day. Listen to Hollywood Calling Sunday on NBC.
Stay tuned for Bill Stern and the Sports Newsreel on NBC.
During the home makeovers
CBS Radio Mystery Theater presents... Come in. Welcome. I'm E.G. Marshall. Once again, I invite you to share a particular kind of story which arises from an experience that is unusual. You probably have had a vivid foreshadowing dream. You may even insist that you have seen a ghost, or that you knew somehow that a distant relative or friend had died. No matter what anyone may say, such experiences are as real as they are puzzling. They're impossible to prove scientifically, because the mind is infinitely complex. Consider, for instance, the problem that Dr. Louis Roby, a psychologist with offices in New York's East Side, is talking over with his associate, Dr. Raymond Taylor. You heard the tape, Ray. Who is this Mrs. Banning? I really don't know. You asked me to see her. Well, she was frantic. And now, this request. Why hypnosis? Because only in a state of induced sleep could she relive what happened generations ago. It's a horrible story, Louis. I don't doubt that it's true. What happened arose from some hereditary trait, some mutation of a gene. And the tiger surfaced. Our mystery story, Tiger, Tiger, Burning Bright, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by Roy Windsor and stars Robert Dryden and Patricia Elliott. It is sponsored in part by Sign-Off, the sinus medicines. I'll be back shortly with Act One. Such words as déjà vu, in which you experience something you seem to have experienced before, or inspiration, a word that means many things, a state of intense intellectual or emotional stimulation, or in theology, a supernatural influence that makes it possible for man to receive and to pass along some divine truth, all quite vague, and all challenges to psychologists who study mental processes. That is the profession of Dr. Louis Roby and his young associate, Dr. Raymond Taylor. Oh, you expecting another patient? No, I was about to go home. I'll see who it is. Thanks. If it's about an appointment, yeah, I understand.
Dr. Roby? Are you Dr. Roby? I must see you.
No, I'm Dr. Taylor.
I must see Dr. Roby.
Well, I'm afraid that...
Please.
Oh, here. Sit down. I'll bring you a cup of water.
No, I'm sorry. It's foolish of me. I won't faint, but it's churning around in me. You must think I'm crazy. Maybe I am. Dr. Roby, I must see him.
You're not a patient of his?
No. I've only heard of him.
And you are?
Banning. Mrs. Clarence Banning. Please, take me to Dr. Roby, or I don't know what will happen to me.
Sit down, Mrs. Banning.
I'm all right. Forgive me for breaking in on you so late in the day, Dr. Roby. You're ready to go home, and here I am. I apologize. I'm as nervous as I'm so distraught I hardly know who I am.
Nervous as a... what, Mrs. Banning? Does that unspoken word upset you?
I don't know why it should. Yes, it does.
Can you tell me what's bothering you?
If I could, I wouldn't have come to you for help.
But we have to begin somewhere. Now, you're Mrs. Clarence Banning, and you live where?
I would rather not say. I don't want my husband to know about this visit.
You wouldn't learn about it from me. Your visit is a confidential matter.
This has nothing to do with him. He's a fine man. Until recently, we've never had a strong disagreement.
Ah, but recently you did disagree?
No. We didn't. None of that is important, Doctor. I don't have the usual case history for you. I say this knowing how foolish it might sound, but there is a demon churning around inside me.
And you don't know what it is. Why do you think I'd be able to help you, Mrs. Benning?
Can you hypnotize me?
Oh, that's an extreme method.
Can you? Are you qualified?
Yes, to both questions, but why do you... No, let me put it this way. What has led you to resort to the idea of hypnosis?
Because I feel that there is something buried inside me that only hypnosis can release. The other doctors have... Well, they've diagrammed my life from childhood, but this thing that churns inside me is something that is deeply buried. It has nothing, I know nothing to do in my own personal background.
You're implying that it's something more remote?
It must be. Isn't that possible, Doctor?
Maybe. Excuse me for 1 minute, Mrs. Banning. If I can hypnotize you, Mrs. Banning, I'll record my questions and your responses on tape because... Oh, Ray, would you mind very much staying on a while longer? Mrs. Banning has requested hypnotic treatment. I may want to confer with you briefly after the session. Thank you. All right, Mrs. Banning.
You will hypnotize me, Doctor.
I'll try to. Why don't you sit in a more comfortable chair, the leather armchair over there?
All right. Will you be able to put me under?
I don't know, but I'll soon find out. Mrs. Banning? Oh, you're not Mrs. Banning? You say your name is Armstrong, Charlotte Armstrong.
Charlotte. Bruce almost always called me Charlie. Only when he spoke severely, and that was seldom, did he say Charlotte.
Was Bruce your husband?
Oh, yes. Lieutenant Bruce Armstrong.
An army man?
Yes. A career officer with the Royal Engineers. We were stationed at a small outpost near the Trista River, a tributary of the Ganges.
Where in India would that be, Mrs. Armstrong?
In Bengal.
And you and your husband lived there in that outpost?
With our little girl.
Oh? Born in India?
No. No, I returned to my parents in Canterbury for the birth of Clarissa.
And then you and the little girl returned to India?
Yes. We were in Calcutta for a time, and I rather enjoyed it. Then Bruce's unit was ordered north into Bengal, and I insisted on joining him there.
And Clarissa?
She went with me, of course. She insisted.
Clarissa was no longer a baby.
No, heavens no. She was 8 years old and devoted to her father.
What year was that, Mrs. Armstrong?
The year we went out was 1870.
And Victoria was queen. And your life at the outpost?
Difficult. Really quite difficult. We were, after all, a very little bit of England in a quite primitive and harsh country. It was lush, of course, but forbidding. The jungle was everywhere. The heat and dampness were depressing, and no one was allowed to wander very far away from the stockade.
Oh? Then this outpost was barricaded?
Yes. The engineers, with native help, had constructed a high paling all around the quarters. Sturdy wood and strongly reinforced that discouraged the predatory animals.
Crocodiles?
Some did crawl out of the river to investigate, and one of them killed a guard who had been careless. The tiger was more terrifying.
One in particular?
They were around, you see. One in particular was, but no, I'd rather not go into that.
What about that particular tiger, Mrs. Armstrong?
Please.
Was this tiger a killer?
Have mercy. Bruce, where are you?
You saw this tiger, Mrs. Armstrong?
It was before tea. It's so very warm. Clarissa said, "Can't we take a short ride in the buggy, Mother?" I said, "Let's. It might cool us off." So the little pony was hitched up, and Clarissa and
Go on.
we had barely got out of the gate to the outpost when, well...
Think hard, Mrs. Armstrong.
I can't go on.
You are outside the gate to the outpost. You're in the buggy drawn by the pony. And then...
Oh, good Lord! Clarissa, run!
I'm going to bring you out of your trance. Now try to relax. When I say Mrs. Clarence Banning, you will come out of your trance. And I'm going to say it now. Mrs. Clarence Banning.
Goodness.
Here's a tissue, Mrs. Banning.
Why is my face all wet?
You've been weeping. You've relived a terrible experience.
What was it?
Does the name Armstrong mean anything to you?
No.
Or Bruce? Or Clarissa?
No. But I like the names. Who are they?
Your husband and 8-year-old daughter.
I don't understand.
Neither do I. Can you tell me something about your family, your mother and father?
Are they mixed up in this?
Well, tell me about them.
Well, they were my parents. That's about all I can tell you. We were never very close. When they were divorced, my mother went her way and I went mine.
You parted?
No. I continued to live with my mother, and then I went to college. My mother remarried. I met the man, and I disliked him. An unctuous type. After college, I came to New York and supported myself until I married Clarence.
And your grandmother?
I only saw her a few times. She lived in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
Her name?
Mrs. Paul. Her first name was Laurel. What is this about, Doctor?
And her mother?
I have no idea.
No family albums, no stories about the past?
Not that I know of. What are you driving at?
I want to see you again, Mrs. Banning.
Why are you being so mysterious? What did I say under hypnosis? What made me cry?
When we're finished, I'll tell you everything. For now, I want to think over what I heard. Even though I cannot explain it satisfactorily, what's disturbing you is an event that occurred over 100 years ago.
What? I went back in time?
You went far back in time. Jesus, the poor woman. It's remarkable, Ray. The incident itself, it could have been out of a story by Kipling, and even stranger, this Mrs. Banning having the incident buried in her after over 100 years. That Bridie Murphy kind of thing. She said something very significant on that tape, Louis. She said she was nervous as a... Then she stopped. She couldn't say cat. I caught that too. That's why I agreed to hypnotize her. When she stuck on that word, I suspected, well, several things. But not what she revealed. I can't get over the horror of it. A young mother and child attacked by a tiger. I wonder if the child escaped. There's some kind of link to Mrs. Armstrong. Or to her husband. He was a young man. He may have remarried.
Yeah, that's true. But I think Mrs. Banning's related to Mrs. Armstrong's side of the family.
I'll try to find that out tomorrow.
I wonder what precipitated the emergence of that 100-year-old skeleton.
Even she won't know. A remark, a photograph in a magazine, the sound of horses' hooves. No, that we'll never know. But I will, I hope, find out what happened to 8-year-old Clarissa. There have been many instances of this kind of recall. For some reason, a man or woman under hypnosis travels backward in time and repeats in detail a conversation heard in an old English inn in the 18th century and can describe its interior down to details that astonish experts. This is not fakery. When conscious, they don't know the things they describe. More about this fascinating subject when I return with Act 2. An exciting adventure in radio entertainment is yours every Monday through Friday. Sears Radio Theater with hosts of talent. I'm Lorne Green. I'm Andy Griffith. I'm Vincent Price.
I'm Cicely Tyson.
I'm Richard Whitmark. The 5 very talented hosts who bring you a broad sweep of top-quality dramas on Sears Radio Theater over most of these CBS radio network stations. You'll hear a play in a different key every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Lorne Green hosting westerns on Monday. Andy Griffith comedies on Tuesday. Vincent Price with mysteries on Wednesday. Cicely Tyson with stories of love and hate on Thursday. And on Friday, Richard Whitmark and Adventure. To enjoy this thrilling experience in radio entertainment, all you do is listen here for Sears Radio Theater, Monday through Friday, on most of these CBS radio network stations. Medical dictionary explains recall as the act of bringing back to mind that which has been previously experienced. But what if something is recalled that you have not experienced? What if, for instance, you could see vividly before you the murder of Julius Caesar? How do you explain that? And the person seeing the murder in retrospect speaks in the Latin of 44 B.C. It is that kind of subject we continue to examine in Act 2. Late the same day, Mrs. Banning has just returned home.
Clarence?
I'm in the living room, dear.
I'm sorry I'm late, darling. Such a busy day. I'll sit down for a minute before I plunge into the kitchen.
Well, we're going out for dinner, all right?
Perfect. What's the occasion?
Your busy day.
Oh?
Did you like him?
What? Him? What are you talking about?
Dr. Roby.
Who's... How do you know about Dr. Roby?
I found out in the telephone directory.
That's impossible.
Not if you left a pencil on a page of the R's and checked off the name.
I did that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my dear. I didn't want you to know.
Is it as bad as that?
I don't know.
You liked Roby?
Very much. I asked him to hypnotize me.
Good heavens.
Under hypnosis, I wept a lot. Look at me, I'm still all puffy.
Well?
I can't tell you anything, Clarence, because I don't remember.
Didn't he tell you what you said?
No. He has it all on the tape.
And he wouldn't discuss it?
He said later. Maybe.
Well, he's reputable. I checked on him. Are you seeing him again?
Late tomorrow.
More hypnosis?
I think so. When he brought me out of it, I was... Well, my face was covered with tears.
You must have revealed something distressing.
I suppose so.
And you can't remember anything about it?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
Remarkable, isn't it, Mr. Banning?
Astonishing. And awful.
that your wife's first name?
Yes.
So there's more to this recall than we've heard. When all of it comes out, I'll review it with her.
Then she will be free, but she'll be cured.
Hopefully, but I can't promise that. I'd like to, but the attack by the tiger, the death of Charlotte Armstrong, the fate of the little girl, experiences that were branded into the Armstrong line.
Well, do you understand how? I mean, to an ordinary person like me, that's hard to understand.
It is to me, too. This is my first experience with this kind of recall, one that jumps generations. Charlotte Armstrong met a horrible death, and her 8-year-old daughter witnessed it. That scene was branded into the little girl's mind. If she survived, and I don't know that yet, she may have borne a child, and that child may have borne another, and so on.
And each somehow retained... Oh, I'm lost.
Because, well, now we're theorizing, but it's possible that the chromosomes from the Armstrong lineage did retain some remembrance of that past event. It became pronounced in your wife's case. Such fears can be drawn out in the person helped, but Mrs. Benning's fear is buried very deep in her subconscious.
What about her mother?
Was she an Armstrong descendant?
I don't know.
It could have been the father.
I wouldn't know.
Now, may I ask you to keep our discussion confidential until I have completed my examination of Mrs. Benning? What is your name?
Charlotte Armstrong. My married name. I'm wife to Lieutenant Bruce Armstrong, and we have a darling little girl named Clarissa. Clarissa. What an interesting name, isn't it? I watched her grow into a fine young woman.
Well, how could you have done that, Mrs. Armstrong?
I don't see why not.
You were riding in a two-wheeled buggy.
Oh, no. No.
Wasn't there an accident?
It sprang at the pony. The tiger.
The Bengal tiger sprang.
I can't believe it. It was horrible. Horrible. The dear little pony. With one sweep of his paw, the tiger killed him.
And Clarissa?
Run, Clarissa. Run. Oh, no. My God.
The tiger killed the pony, and then he killed you.
Yes. He killed me. I don't remember anything more. I don't remember any pain.
But Clarissa married.
Oh, yes. Yes, she did.
Mrs. Armstrong, if you had been killed, how could you know about Clarissa?
She escaped. Oh, yes, she ran her little legs off and reached the stockade safely.
You saw that?
Clearly. A nice young man, Tom Durrell, ran out of the stockade gate toward the dead pony and the overturned buggy and shot the tiger and killed him.
You saw this?
Yes. It was very sad.
What happened to your Clarissa?
I'm very tired. Very, very tired.
You will begin to come out of a deep sleep. I will bring you out of your deep sleep. Has she left? No. She's lying down in my office asleep. She's exhausted. Did you listen to the tape?
Yeah, I just turned off the machine. Sit down, Louis. Oh, for a minute. I'm exhausted, too. It's not reincarnation. No. She's not an instance of a soul returning to a new body. What next? I'll talk with her and send her home. Then I'll ask her and her husband to come in for a visit. What about her problem, that churning sensation she has? Once she knows what's caused it, it may disappear. I hope so. Have they children? No. And that's the end of the obsession.
Well, Dr. Roby?
Rested?
Best nap I've had in months.
That's good. In reply to your question, I can say that another consultation won't be necessary.
Oh? And your conclusions?
What I'll do tomorrow is to have the tapes transcribed and send them to you by messenger. You should know what you revealed under hypnosis. Then I think that the three of us should discuss it.
All right, but why?
Because even though we've brought to the surface a most remarkable story, it's important that you should be free of this obsession. I will suggest ways that I hope will help.
Could you visit us and could we talk about it in our home? Or is that all wrong professionally if it is?
No. There's nothing wrong with that. I'll be pleased to call on you. Why don't we say after dinner tomorrow night?
You won't give me a hint of what's been bothering me, Doctor.
I'll just say this, Mrs. Banning. What's been, as you have said, churning you up inside is nothing for which you are responsible. You have done nothing that's been eating away at you. It was something done to an ancestor of yours 100 years ago. It's positively weird, Doctor. Have both of you read the transcripts? Yes. Well, what did you think of the transcripts, Mrs. Benny?
Well, the story floored me. It's a horrible story. It makes me crazy to think that I've carried it around in my subconscious all my life. Can you explain it?
No, not to my satisfaction. My associate, Dr. Taylor, and I have theorized about it, and the best we can do is to relate it to a branded chromosome. A chromosome of Clarissa's that was branded or scarred by what she witnessed. A genetic flaw? Perhaps. Of a kind that is rare.
Then the tiger attacked and killed Charlotte Armstrong, and Clarissa naturally was horrified and never forgot what she saw. And then somehow her horror branded a chromosome?
And when she bore a child, a slight shadow of what she had experienced was transmitted to her own child or children. Something in you triggered your recall and you retrogressed 100 years. Now, it would help if you knew your family history.
I don't.
But we mean to find out. I think you should. Trace Charlotte Armstrong, if you can, through your lineage. Discuss her experience. Get it out into the light of day. If you persist, it's my hope that it will cease to horrify you and become just a conscious memory. You can handle that.
Yes, I can do that.
Good. It's what's hidden that's dangerous. What's secreted. It festers and is debilitating. You're saying this thing still could be dangerous? Very. Going back in time, sometimes hundreds of years, is not unique, but it is unusual. Cases have been documented without being explained. Perhaps it's a form of reincarnation, the recapture of a life lived before. As a poet said, the caverns of the mind are obscure, and that is still true. Our bodies and minds are the product of inheritance, shaped by environment. The past echoes in us. More when I return with Act 3.
famous true instance about going back in time. When General George Patton took over his first command in France, a French captain offered to show him around. Not necessary, said Patton. I've been here before. To prove it, he led the way to what was an old Roman amphitheater, then to the drill grounds, and to the former temples of Mars and Apollo. Patton, who believed in reincarnation, told the captain that he had been a Roman soldier in a previous life. That's one story, and there are others. So Mrs. Banning's recall of an attack by a tiger in Bengal in the late 19th century cannot be brushed aside as fiction. The next morning, Dr. Roby is speaking to his associate.
The Bannings are lovely people. They're intelligent. You told them that the Armstrong story still could be dangerous?
Yes.
Unless she rids herself of its horror, she could, well, what, be victimized by it. Possessed? But you helped her exorcise it, Luce. She's healthy. Are you worried about a nervous breakdown? She has a vivid imagination, and fear is a wild emotion. She must work to overcome it. Will she? Both of them will. I've asked them to look into Mrs. Banning's lineage. Her roots are important here. The more she learns about her ancestry, the better she'll be able to understand the history of her people. Once that Bengal tiger event is remembered and acknowledged... Yes, I understand. Like letting sunshine into a tunnel to dispel what's imagined to be lurking in its corners. Will you continue to treat her? No, that depends. I don't think there's any need for more hypnosis. You want to stay in touch with them, Louis. I want to. Out of curiosity. Nothing more.
Clarence, won't you be late at your office? It's almost...
Yes, I know. I'm not going to the office. I'm taking a few days off. I think we're going to get to the bottom of this tiger business.
Oh.
And the logical place to start, the only place, is with your family.
But I have no family, you know that.
Well, there's your father, Charlotte, and stepfather.
He wouldn't know anything. My stepfather, I mean. I haven't seen my real father in, well, it must be 25 years.
Where does he live?
I don't know.
Well, where did he live?
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, I think, but I'm not sure. I don't want to see him, Clarence.
He's your father.
I know. He is my father, but he never was a father to me. A loveless man. After I went to college, I never saw him again. My mother divorced him, as you know. A domineering woman. They had bitter quarrels.
A lovely childhood.
I tried hard to forget it.
Well, if you won't see him, I must.
Clarence, please, let's forget it.
No.
Really, I feel quite fine now. Dr. Roby dragged the past out of me, and I am fine, really.
Good. But I intend to follow the doctor's orders. Now, he's anxious to link you up with Charlotte Armstrong. And so am I.
But why?
To clear away the last shred of mystery about what you recalled. Get the whole thing out in the open. Your father's name, if he's still living, you know that?
No. But if he is, he must be in his 70s.
Well, anyway, his full name?
Wingate. Ronald James Wingate.
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. All right, I'll try to trace him. And then we'll pay him a visit.
Yes?
Banning. I telephoned late yesterday. May I come in?
You might as well. We're waiting to give me a cue.
Thank you.
You're Charlotte's husband?
Yes. This is the first time I've had the pleasure of meeting you.
Yeah, you won't find it much of a pleasure. I lead my life, and I prefer to be left alone.
Well, I won't take much of your time, Mr. Wingate. May I sit down?
No, yes, go ahead. What's all this about a tiger?
trying to explain Charlotte's vivid recall of the death of a Mrs. Bruce Armstrong.
She told me about that. I still can't help you.
Well, you agreed to think about your heredity, Mr. Wingate.
I have. I don't think I can help.
You're American? Born here?
Yes. But I'm not here in New York City.
And your father?
American.
Your mother's maiden name?
Pamela Nilsson.
American?
English, I think. She died when I was a boy.
And her mother, your grandmother?
I never knew her.
But she could have been Clarissa something. Maiden name Armstrong. Charlotte Armstrong to Clarissa to Pamela Nelson, your mother. If you could link up.
Is there money there?
No, why do you ask?
You talk like a lawyer.
I am a lawyer.
I thought so. Must be money there. You come all the way from New York just to ask me questions about a tiger?
I did. A remembrance of the tiger killing her mother.
Nonsense. Her mother married a smiler and died of boredom. And Charlotte, as a child, always was a little strange.
Well, she's no longer, if she ever was, Mr. Wingate. Charlotte's outgrown her unhappy childhood.
I think you'd better go.
So do I. Thank you for your courtesy.
Sit down, Mr. Banning. You look tensed up.
Yes, I am. But I also have some news that I think is pretty good. I paid a visit to my wife's father. I managed to drag out of him the name of his mother, Pamela Nilsson. English. Now, I'm betting that her mother was Clarissa Armstrong before she married. So maybe we really can trace my wife's lineage back to Mrs. Bruce Armstrong and her gruesome death.
Good, very good.
I'll start now at the other end, England. And when I've got it put together, I'll call on you again.
I want you to. The sooner the better.
Oh? It's really that important?
I think it could be. In my opinion, and it's only that, perspective here is important. Your wife's recall of that tiger attack was vivid, as if a tiger had attacked her. I want to try to push that far back in her subconscious memory, so far back that it will never surface again as an immediate experience.
What if my investigation drags on, huh?
Then it'll have to. But until the history is all laid out, Mrs. Banning could still be terrorized by that tiger attack.
What did Dr. Roby have to say?
Oh, not much, really. He's pleased about my detective work.
You've been gone a very long time.
When I stopped by my office and got busy about the English end of the thing. What time? Well, it is late. Almost noon. Well, how about a walk along Fifth Avenue? It's a lovely day.
I'd love that.
A little stroll for an hour and then have some lunch.
Oh, that sounds very pleasant. I need some fresh air.
Are you all right, darling?
Yes.
No, tiger tantrums?
No, not this morning. No, I'm over that, Clarence.
Good. Let's hope so.
Doesn't the doctor think so?
Oh, yes.
It's not in your tone of voice, Clarence. So I'm still not free of that thing.
Well, almost, my dear. Once we get it in perspective, that was Ruby's word, it will be exorcised. And we shall. I'll hear from England within a week.
And until then?
Well, we enjoy life, think bright thoughts, take a stroll down Fifth Avenue.
You are a sweetheart, Clarence.
Yes, come to think of it, I think I am.
Clarence, why don't we wander around in the zoo? peanuts and feed the elephants?
Fine.
You never said much about your visit with my father, Clarence.
Well, it didn't amount to much, my dear.
Was he cordial?
No, but that was unimportant. He's a strange man.
Look, some of the big animals are in their outdoor cages.
Yes. Look at that fella. Can you look at him, or shall we turn away?
No.
Huge, isn't he? Magnificent.
A Bengal tiger.
That's right. There's nothing to be alarmed about.
Clarence, I think we should turn back.
Certainly. Oh, you're trembling. Darling, you can't go on hiding.
Please, Clarence. I feel I'm frightened.
Come away, then.
He jumped down from his shelf.
Serena?
I want to run.
Charlotte?
Clarissa, run! Run! Clarissa! Oh, my leg! Oh!
Charlotte! Charlotte! Darling, get up! She's dead? Dead. Oh, no. The Bannings were strolling through Central Park, and I walked around in the zoo. I came to the tiger's cage, and suddenly, according to witnesses, the tiger went crazy and flew at the bars of his cage, right at Mrs. Banning. She screamed and fainted. That's what they thought. Actually, she dropped dead. Good Lord. Before she collapsed, witnesses say she tried to break away from her husband, and they heard her screaming, "Clarissa, run, run." Horrible. And she collapsed. Must have been some kind of affinity between the tiger and Mrs. Banning. Oh, that's far-fetched, Ray. Yeah, maybe. But animals do sense when a person's afraid of them. I caused her death. Oh, that's foolish. Through hypnosis, I brought that killer tiger to the surface of her mind. Well, of course, and a good thing, too. But because I did, Mrs. Banning was conscious of it. It had come to the forefront of her mind. When she saw the tiger in the cage, that was the catalyst. That tiger became the Bengal killer tiger. The collision of the ideas horrified her. That's why she became Mrs. Armstrong for that moment. Now I'll see who it is, okay? Mr. Banning? Dr. Roby? Come in. I don't know what to say. Dr. Taylor just told me what happened. I'm inexpressibly sorry. I feel my responsibility deeply. I thought you might. But you were not responsible, Doctor. I've been walking around and thinking for hours. I'd like to blame someone. But I can't. It was fated. Even the cure. Hypnosis and exorcism to get rid of an obsession. It was just fated that the cure was discovered too late. My wife was doomed over 100 years ago.
No one has exact answers to our mental quirks. Doctors of the mind can theorize about behavior and even agree that the past of a person's lineage becomes part of such a person's present. For instance, how else can we explain the appearance of a brilliant man or woman whose parents are simple? There are many examples of this kind, so we do know one thing. The permutations of mental and spiritual characteristics are infinite. Was Mrs. Banning's death
Yo, this is Rogue. Welcome to our Halloween special. We are switching over right now to Suspense Radio, The Waxwork. The Waxwork, old time, March 1st, 1959.
Suspense. And the producer of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, the master of mystery and adventure, William N. Robeson.
There is an old definition which describes the theater as a plank on two barrels and a passion. Analogously, we might describe radio drama as a microphone, a voice, and a story. Tonight we have all three and little else. Little else is needed when the voice belongs to an actor of the stature of Herbert Marshall. We present him without supporting players, without sound effects, and no more than the usual musical trimmings. His voice is all that's needed to strike terror to your heart. So send the more impressionable small children out of the room, dim the lights, settle back and listen, as Mr. Marshall stars in A.M. Burridge's chilling story, The Waxwork, which begins in just a moment.
Here's Frankie Lane. I never feel like singing with a bad cold, so I take wonderful 4-way cold tablets to relieve my cold misery fast.
Right. Tests of 4 leading cold tablets proved 4-way fastest acting of all. Amazing 4-way starts in minutes to relieve aches, pains, headache, reduce fever, calm upset stomach, also overcomes irregularity.
So when you catch cold, take my advice. Take 4-way cold tablets. It's the fast way to relieve those nasty cold miseries and feel better quickly.
4-way, 29 and 59 cents.
Here's a word about another fine product of Grove Laboratories. To get rid of embarrassing dandruff in 3 minutes, change to Fitch Dandruff Remover Shampoo. 3 minutes with Fitch regularly is guaranteed to keep unsightly dandruff away forever. Apply Fitch before wetting hair. Rub in 1 minute. Add water. Lather 1 minute. Then rinse 1 minute. Every trace of dandruff goes down the drain. 3 minutes with Fitch, and embarrassing dandruff's gone. At the same time, Fitch can brighten hair up to 35%. Get Fitch Dandruff Remover Shampoo today. And now, The Waxwork, starring Mr. Herbert Marshall. A tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
While the uniformed attendants of Mariner's Waxworks were ushering the last stragglers through the exit, the manager sat in his office interviewing Raymond Hewson, a young journalist somewhat down on his luck. The manager was speaking.
It used to be said years ago that Madame Tussauds would give a man £100 for sleeping alone in the Chamber of Horrors. I hope you don't think that we have made any such offer, Mr. Hewson. By the way, what is your paper?
I'm freelancing at present. However, I should find no difficulty in getting the story printed. The Morning Echo would use it like a shot. A night with Mariner's murderers.
Very well, Mr. Hewson. I must warn you, it's no small ordeal that you're proposing to undertake. I own I shouldn't care to take it on. I should hate having to spend the night alone in the murderer's den.
Why?
Well, those waxworks represent the lowest and most appalling types of humanity. The whole atmosphere of the place is unpleasant, and if you are susceptible to atmosphere, I warn you that you are in for a very uncomfortable night.
Hewson had known that from the moment the idea had first occurred to him. His soul sickened at the prospect. But here was a chance not to be missed. The price of a special story in the Morning Echo. Besides, if he wrote the story well, it might lead to an offer of regular employment. The manager smiled and rose.
Well, I think the last of the people must have gone by now.
Oh, one condition I'm afraid I must impose on you. I must ask you not to smoke. We had a fire scare down there this evening. I don't know who gave the alarm, but whoever it was a false one.
Fortunately, there were very few people down there at the time, or there might have been a panic. And now, if you're ready, I'll take you down to the murderer's den.
In a moment, we continue with the second act of Suspense.
Here comes Elmer Blurt, world's lowest pressure salesman.
Nobody home, I hope. It says here, J.P. Pullum, dentist. You wouldn't want to buy a new 1959 Rambler, would you, Doc?
You are a lucky man. I just happen to have a vacancy. Sit down.
Yeah, but Doc...
Open wide. Oh, that's right. You know, you don't have to sell me on the 59 Rambler. It's first in economy, first in sales gains, and no wonder. Rambler has the best of both. Big car room, small car economy.
Yeah, but Doc...
Oh, relax. Can't you salesmen ever stop selling? You know, Rambler's got quite an idea with that personalized comfort. Independently adjustable front seats, adjustable headrests, easiest parking and handling in America. Well, that 59 Rambler is so terrific it makes you want to put your foot right down on the accelerator. No, that didn't hurt, did it?
Oh, gosh, Willikers, no. That's my lower plates you've been drilling.
Rambler continues to pass car after car in sales. In state after state, Rambler now outsells all but 2 other makes. Come see why. Drive the success car at your Rambler dealers.
And now, starring Mr. Herbert Marshall, Act 2 of The Waxwork.
Murderer's Den in Mariner's Waxworks was an eerie and uncomfortable chamber. A chamber whose atmosphere invited its visitors to speak in whispers. The waxwork murderers stood on low pedestals. Recent notorieties rubbed dusty shoulders with the old favorites. Thurtell, the murderer of Weir, stood as if frozen in the act of making a shop window gesture to young Bywaters. There was Lefroy, the poor half-baked little snob who killed for gain so that he might ape the gentleman. Within a few yards of him sat Mrs. Thompson, that erotic romanticist, hanged to propitiate British middle-class matronhood. Charles Peace, the only member of the vile company who was uncompromisingly and entirely evil, smeared across at Norman Thorne. The manager pointed out several more interesting of these unholy notabilities. That's Crippen. I expect you recognize him. Insignificant little beast who looks as if he couldn't tread on a worm. That is Armstrong. Looks like a decent, harmless country gentleman, doesn't he? There's old Vaquier. You can't miss him, of course, because of his beard. And this one. Who's that? Hewson asked in a whisper. Oh, have a good look at him. This is our star. He's the only one of the bunch that hasn't been hanged. The figure which Hewson had indicated was that of a small, slight man, not much more than 5 feet in height. It wore little waxed moustaches, large spectacles, and an opera cape. There was something so exaggeratedly French in its appearance that it reminded Hewson of a stage caricature. He could not have said precisely why the mild-looking face seemed to him so repellent. Who is he? That, said the manager, is Dr. Burdett. Hewson shook his head doubtfully. I think I've heard the name, but I forget in connection with what? Ah, you would remember better if you were a Frenchman. A little while back, that man was the terror of Paris. He carried on his work of healing by day and of fruit-cutting by night. He killed for the sheer devilish pleasure it gave him to kill. And always in the same way, with a razor. But at last he left a clue behind him which set the police upon his track. But he was too clever for them. When he realized that the coils were closing about him, he mysteriously disappeared, and ever since, the police of every civilized country have been looking for him. However, there is no doubt that he managed to do away with himself, and by some means which has prevented his body coming to light. I don't like him at all. What eyes he's got. Yes, this figure's a little masterpiece. You find the eyes bite into you? Well, that's excellent realism, then, for Burdett practiced mesmerism and was supposed to hypnotize his victims before dispatching them. Indeed, had he not done so, it is impossible to see how so small a man could have accomplished his ghastly work. There were never any signs of a struggle. I thought I saw him move. Well, you'll have more than one optical illusion before the night's out, I expect, sir. I'm sorry I can't give you any more light, but all the lights are already on. For obvious reasons, we keep this place as gloomy as possible. Well, good night, Mr. Hewson. The manager had provided an armchair for Hewson, who immediately turned it so that his back was towards the effigy of Dr. Burdett. For some undefined reason, he liked Dr. Burdett a great deal less than his companions. The dim, unwavering light fell on the rows of figures which were so uncannily like human beings that the silence and the stillness seemed unnatural and even ghastly. He missed the sound of breathing, the rustling of clothes, the 101 minute noises one hears when even the deepest silence has fallen upon a crowd. And the air was as stagnant as water at the bottom of a standing pond. It must be like this at the bottom of the sea, he thought. He faced the sinister figures boldly enough. They were only waxworks. So long as he let that thought dominate all others, he promised himself that all would be well. It did not, however, save him long from the discomfort occasioned by the waxen stare of Dr. Burdett, which he knew was directed upon him from behind. The eyes of the little Frenchman's effigy haunted and tormented him, and he itched with a desire to turn and look. At last, the compulsion was too great, and he slewed his chair round and looked behind him. The image of the dreadful little doctor seemed to stand out with a queer prominence. Hewson flinched before the parody of mildness which some fiendishly skilled craftsman had managed to convey in wax, met the eyes for an agonized second, and turned again to face the other direction. He is only a waxwork like the rest of you. You are all only waxworks. They were only waxworks, yes, but waxworks don't move. Not that he had seen the least movement anywhere, but it struck him that in the moment or two when he had looked behind him, there had been the least subtle change in the grouping of the figures in front. Crippen, for instance, seemed to have turned a degree to the left. Or, thought Hewson, perhaps the illusion was due to the fact that he had not returned his chair to its exact original position. He had neither seen nor heard a movement, but it was as if some sixth sense had made him aware of one. He looked straight into the vapid countenance of Lefroy, which smiled vacantly back as if to say, "It wasn't I." Of course it wasn't he, or any of them. It was his own nerves. Or was it? He swung round quickly to encounter the mild but baleful stare of Dr. Burdett. Then, without warning, he jerked his head back to stare straight at Crippen. Ah! He nearly caught Crippen that time. You'd better be careful, Crippen, and all the rest of you. If I do see one of you move, I'll smash you to pieces. Do you hear? This would not do. This distinctly would not do. These figures grouped around him were only dummies, made of wax and sawdust. They stood there for the entertainment of morbid sightseers and orange-sucking trippers. It was no good. He knew the effigy of Dr. Burdett was staring at him. He could feel the two places where the gaze of those piercing eyes pressed into his back. He turned halfway and tried to steal a glance at the figure, but instead he felt himself whirled around to face those dreadful, hypnotic eyes. You moved! Yes, you did, you moved! I saw you. You moved! Then he sat quite still, staring straight before him like a man found frozen in the Arctic snows. Dr. Burdett's movements were leisurely. He stepped off the pedestal with the mincing care of a lady alighting from a bus, and then quietly sat down on the edge facing Hewson. Monsieur, monsieur. Something tells me that you are nervous. My dear sir, have no illusions. I am not one of these contemptible effigies miraculously come to life. I am Dr. Bourget himself.
In a moment, we continue with the third act of Suspense.
Little you know about the little white tablet in the little green pocket roll, just a-waiting for the moment when you need 'em to bring your acid indigestion under control. Tums are the little white tablets in the little green pocket roll. Tums for the tummy, T-U-M-S, bring relief quicker than you'd ever guess. Best for any kind of acid distress. Keep 'em handy in the pocket roll. Keep your tummy under Tums control.
Tums are fast, effective, and safe. Tums relieve the discomfort of acid indigestion quickly, with no danger of acid rebound, sometimes caused by harsh alkalizers. Always carry Tums, 10 cents. 3-roll pack, $1. New Tums 6-roll pack with free metal carrier, 49 cents.
And now, starring Mr. Herbert Marshall, Act 3 of The Waxwork.
Houston sat immobile, staring at the mild little murderer. He could see, he could hear, but he could not move a muscle, and he could not tear his eyes away from Dr. Bourdet's hypnotic eyes. The doctor continued in his easy manner. The circumstances have made it desirable that I should live in England. I was close to this building this evening when I saw a policeman regarding me a little too curiously. I guessed that he intended to follow and perhaps ask me embarrassing questions, so I mingled with the crowd and came in here. A coin bought my admission to the chamber in which we now meet, and an inspiration showed me a certain means of escape. I raised a cry of fire, and when all the fools had rushed to the stairs, I stripped my effigy of the cape which you behold me wearing, donned it, hid my effigy under the platform at the back, and took its place on the pedestal. The manager's description of me, which I had the embarrassment of being compelled to overhear, was biased, but not altogether inaccurate. Clearly, I am not dead, although it is as well that the world think I am. His account of my hobby, which I have indulged for years, although through necessity less frequently of late, was, in the main, true. For you see, the world is divided between collectors and non-collectors. With the non-collectors we are not concerned. The collectors collect anything according to their individual tastes, from money to cigarette cards, from moths to matchboxes. I collect fruits. He paused again and regarded Houston's throat with interest mingled with disfavor. I am obliged to the chance which brought us together tonight, and perhaps it would seem ungrateful to complain. From motives of personal safety, my activities have been somewhat curtailed of late, and I am glad of this opportunity of gratifying my somewhat unusual whim. But you have a skinny neck, sir, if you will overlook a personal remark. I should never have selected you from choice. I like men with thick necks, thick red necks. He fumbled in an inside pocket and took out something which he tested against a wet forefinger, and then proceeded to pass gently to and fro across the palm of his left hand. This is a little French razor. The blade, you will observe, is very narrow, They do not cut very deep, but deep enough. In just one little moment you shall see for yourself. I shall ask you the little civil question of all polite barbers. Does the razor suit you, sir? He rose up, a diminutive but menacing figure of evil, and approached Hewson with the silent, furtive step of a hunting panther. You will have the goodness to raise your chin a little. Thank you. And a little more. Just a little more. Ah, thank you. Merci. Merci, monsieur. Merci, merci. Over one end of the chamber was a thick skylight of frosted glass, which by day let in a few sickly and filtered rays from the floor above. After sunrise, these began to mingle with the subdued light from the electric bulbs, and this mingled illumination added a certain ghastliness to a scene which needed no additional touch of horror. The waxwork figures stood apathetically in their places, waiting to be admired or execrated by the crowds who would presently wander fearfully among them. In their midst, Hewson sat still, leaning far back in his swivel chair. His chin was up-tilted as if it were waiting to receive attention from a barber. And although there was not a scratch upon his throat, nor anywhere upon his body, he was cold and dead. Dr. Baudet on his pedestal watched the dead man unemotionally. He did not move, nor was he capable of motion. But then, after all, he was only a waxwork.
Suspense, in which Herbert Marshall starred in William N. Robson's production of The Waxwork, written by A.M. Burridge and adapted for radio by Mel Dinelli. In a moment, a word about next week's story of suspense.
Do you have trouble getting your husband to talk frankly about the intimate and important things in your married life? All too often, a husband's reluctance to talk about sex, money, or the children can destroy a happy marriage. Be sure to read one woman's real-life solution to this problem in the new March issue of McCall's magazine, now at your favorite newsstand. In all, you'll find more than 40 exciting features in this big new issue of McCall's. Read 15 practical, down-to-earth ideas on how you can earn an extra $1,000 this year by doing just a few hours' work each week. Learn Debbie Reynolds' side of the strange divorce story that wrecked Hollywood's ideal marriage. And see many full-color photos previewing the newest styles and hairdos that women will be wearing this spring. Don't miss the fascinating March issue of McCall's with more than 40 exciting features for you and your family. Buy the new March McCall's at all newsstands now.
Listen. Listen again next week, when we return with Myron McCormick in Madman of Manhattan, another tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
The latest news follows, then Have Gun Will Travel on the CBS Radio Network.
Tired of the everyday grind? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all? We offer you Escape.
Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
You are drifting along the muddy reaches of a South American river. Your diving gear in readiness, the air pump going. Yet you know that in the murky depths below you, waiting in the slime there for you, is a mortal enemy from whom there may be no escape.
Listen now as Escape brings you Tony Barrett's story, Bloodwaters.
They take you up slowly, always slowly, even in a nothing job like this one. A harbor bottom dive that a beginner would laugh at. I kicked away from the heavy pilings harder than I had to, and I knew I was trying to dull my mind again, not to think about it. Trying to sell myself the same old story. That a diver shouldn't care where he works because the job's always the same. There's something down there, they want it, you get it, period. But it didn't work too well. The story was wearing thin.
There you are, senor. You want the suit off or you want to rest first, huh?
Rest from what? A 50-foot dive? Get me out of this suit.
See.
Perhaps the man knows best, Trent.
Murdoch.
A 50-foot dive can be dangerous, but then danger never bothered you, did it?
What are you doing here, Murdoch? What do you want?
Does an old friend have to want something?
I'm not interested in any of your deals.
Really? With this job finished and nothing else in sight?
I'm busy, Murdoch. Beat it.
No curiosity, Trent? Not so much as a, what are you doing in a forsaken hole in Argentina? You never were much at small talk, were you?
Goodbye, Murdoch.
Wait a minute.
Take your hand off me.
Why the rush? Where are you going?
You know it all. You tell me.
All right. I will. What you do between now and tonight does not matter. But at 9 o'clock, I shall expect you at the Café del Rondo, promptly.
And if I don't come?
Can you afford not to come, Trent? It still takes money to live, even down here. I'll see you at 9 o'clock.
You've been talking for an hour now, Murdoch, and you haven't said anything. Get to it.
You have no social graces. Pity. Trent, how would you like never to have to get into diving gear again? To be rich, really rich. To have everything you ever wanted.
I had everything I wanted once. You remember that, don't you, Murdoch?
How long have you been away from the States, Trent?
What's that got to do with it?
How long?
3 years. 3 stinking years.
And don't you want to go back?
No, I like working jungle holes like this. I like 50-foot dockside dives with native boys that fall asleep on the pumps while you're down there. What are you building?
Fortune for both of us.
What do you want this time? My right eye?
Can't you forget what happened?
Can you?
You're being stupid.
You're out of your territory down here, Murdoch, so talk nice to me.
Look, Trent, in 2 months, we can both walk out of here with more money than you ever dreamed of.
I don't dream anymore.
Gold, Trent. If I told you how much, you would think me mad.
You want to give me half?
You will earn it.
By diving?
Yes. Did I say something humorous?
So you fell for the national industry. Don't you know there's a peddler on every corner down here selling maps of sunken treasure? I love that. The smooth Vincent Murdoch is a tourist.
And now, do you want to hear what I have to say?
Say your piece.
Did you ever hear of the Gran Chacos Rebellion?
Sorry, I'm late, Senor.
Ah, Maria, my dear. May I present Senor Trent Hall? This is Maria Sandoval.
Senorita?
Senor?
Sit down, Maria. Something to drink?
No, gracias.
You said something about a rebellion.
14 years ago, to be exact. Bolivia and Paraguay were at each other's throats. It's in the history books.
I didn't know you were a reader, Murdoch.
The Paraguayans were getting the worst of it. So they loaded a small boat, the Santa Rosa, with millions in gold for shipping up the Paraguay River. It was to go to Brazil for safekeeping.
Well?
After the boat left Puerto Pinasco, it was never seen again. Nor was the gold.
It's true, Senor.
Storm?
They never even found survivors. Besides, where would they look? Have you any idea of the length of the Paraguay River?
2 governments can't find the gold, but you can.
That is correct. I can.
What do you got? Charts?
Better than that.
What then?
I said before that they never found survivors. I did. The only one. Interested, Trent?
I don't want any part of you, Murdoch. Now or any time, so get off my back.
Don't you realize what I'm offering you?
I understand this. It's over. I'm through with you and your schemes, and I'm not running anymore. Get that through your head, you fat slut.
Now you listen to me.
3 years ago, I listened to you. 3 years down in this sinkhole is what I got for it. 3 years, you foul, filthy bitch!
That's enough. Don't stop.
I don't know how long it lasted. How many times I hit him trying to pay him back for the lonely years. But finally it was over. Finished. And I was back at the waterfront again, tasting the soft breeze coming in from the sea.
Senor? Senor Trent.
What do you want? Oh, Maria, isn't it?
Si. Maria.
I'm sorry if I messed up your friend Murdoch.
He's all right now. Besides, I have seen men fight before.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. You always follow the winner?
Anger forces words the tongue does not want to say.
My name is Trent, not Murdoch. Plain enough.
I know your name, Senor. Oh, there is a scratch on your cheek, Senor. A little blood. Let me. A woman knows how. Senor. Senor.
Is that the way you kiss Murdoch?
Your eyes, Paulito. The anger is still there.
And it shouldn't be, not after that, huh?
Paulito.
Who were you really kissing, Maria? Me or him? What do you want, the gold, Murdoch? Everybody wants something. What's yours?
I want you to come with me, Senor.
No more Paulito, huh?
Please. Come with me, please. I show you what I want.
She turned and moved away without ever once looking back, as though she was sure I'd follow her. And she was right. The shack she led me to was less than a half mile away, no different than any of the others around it. She turned to look at me once as she opened the door, and her eyes were 1,000 years old. She lit a lamp, and I looked where she was pointing. He lay on a bed in the corner, a little Portuguese, maybe 50, cackling softly to himself as though he knew a joke that nobody else would ever know. His hair was pure white, the kind that comes from too much terror, too much shock. And then I saw his hands. From fingertips to elbows, they were a mass of little scars, ugly, needle-like scars that spoke of some past moment of horror. We moved closer, but he never looked up. Just sat crooning softly to a bottle of whiskey cradled in his arm. Maria? Who is he?
Have you never seen a man who has lost his mind to fear? Look well, for he is such a one. Pobrecitos. Estoy aquí, todo es bueno, estoy aquí, pobrecito. Have you seen enough, Senor?
Is he
My father. What is left of him?
How did it happen, Maria?
You have already been told.
What?
Murdoch spoke truth tonight when he told of the survivor from the Santa Rosa. There he is.
Later, as we sat staring out at the water, she told me all of it. And it wasn't hard to follow. An old man, driven insane by terror, who clung to Murdoch because Murdoch kept him in whiskey, the one thing that pushed the terror away for a while. Very neat and tidy, the Murdoch touch.
You understand now, Paulito?
Yeah. What do you want me to do, Maria? Make the trip with Murdoch as his diver? Is that what you want?
My father is a child now. Murdoch will use him. Then... Oh.
That's all you wanted from the beginning, isn't it? For me to be a watchdog.
He is my father, Paulito.
Yeah. I never asked. You going along?
Si, I go.
All right, Maria. I'll dive for Murdoch.
Oh, gracias. Muchísimas gracias.
It's all right.
Paulito, kiss me, please.
Gratitude for your father?
No, not this time, querido. This time, for me.
Murdoch was all sweetness and light next morning when I told him he had a diver. You'd have sworn we were old buddies. He balked at only one thing, my wanting to take along Jose, the kid who'd handled pumps for me on the harbor job. But I wasn't about to do any diving without somebody I trusted handling lines. Murdoch didn't like it, but he couldn't afford to argue. Jose turned out to be a real good investment before we ever got started. That night, as a matter of fact. Oh, you finish up, Jose?
Si. All finished, Senor.
You watch him crate the gear?
I did it myself.
I should have known. Thanks.
Senor, how well you know the Senor Murdoch?
Too well. Why? Well, come on, Jose. What is it?
While I was taking care of the gear, he was getting the permisos. How you say?
The permits? Government permits for the interior?
Si. You supposed to name all the people that go.
I know that. What about it?
I saw the papers, Senor.
Well?
It's every name there, except yours.
I see.
But why? Why does he do a thing like that, Senor? What reason?
To save its flame later.
Okay.
Murdoch's got it all figured out, Jose.
No, I still do not understand. Why are you not on that list?
It's real simple. A man who doesn't make a trip can't be expected to come back from it.
You are listening to Bloodwaters, tonight's presentation of Escape. Millions in Asia living on inadequate diets, and additional millions in free Europe fighting for post-war recovery, are the beneficiaries when you give to CARE, C-A-R-E. Send a $10 CARE package or the $6.95 budget package. For further details, write CARE, New York. That's CARE, New York. And now, Escape, and the second act of Bloodwaters.
gotta see to believe. A thing that exists every foot of the length of Argentina. Get a couple of hours inland from the coast, and you've gone back 1,000 years. Nothing but jungle. Jungle so thick and green, you can travel a full day without ever once getting a glimpse of sunlight. It's bad enough any way you try it, but doing it Murdoch's way was the worst. Murdoch, a gold-hungry, penny-pinching man who hadn't hired enough bearers, who skimped on food, and who hated every minute wasted on rest. Maria took it well, quiet for the most part, her eyes never far from Sandoval. The old man was pathetic, shambling along, falling often, uncaring and never hearing. There was only one sound that mattered in his world, the cork coming out of the bottle. And Murdoch was master of the bottle. 4 days of it, 4 stinking, crawling days. And on the morning of the 5th, we came out of it. Stood there, looking out at the Paraguay River. The gold was showing in Murdoch's eyes again.
Look at it, Trent. Beautiful, isn't it?
It's a river, that's all it is. It's been a long walk. Where to now?
3 days upriver. Do you have any objections?
You're footing the bill?
And you should remember that. You check out the supplies while I make arrangements for the boat.
Don't you want me to take a look at the boat before you make a deal? Make sure you get a good winch?
You have a short memory, Trent. I'd say I'm fairly capable of making deals, wouldn't you? You just make sure the bearers don't steal anything when they leave.
I take care of that for you, Senor.
Well, thanks, Jose. Oh, and keep an eye on the old man, huh?
Sí, Senor.
Ole, hombres, ven aquí.
Pablito.
Maria, you all right?
Sí. Oh, I'm so grateful to you, querido.
For what?
For everything. Everything. Pablito, you take care with Murdoch. He's a dangerous man.
Yeah. Now listen to me. From here on, it's going to be different.
Different?
We'll all be on a small boat for days, maybe weeks. I won't always be around because of the diving. Here, take the gun. Just take it and hope you don't have to use it. A couple of hours later, Murdoch came back and waved us down to the river. Instead of being alone, now he had a native with him. A big man he called Batu. A lot of man. Even through the paint on his face, you could see the combination of Mayan and Inca. The 1,000-year-old dignity as he stood looking at us.
Trent, this is Batu. I've just arranged for the boat and he's going upriver with us. Go help with the loading, Batu.
Batu, help.
What are we taking him for, Murdoch?
He wants to go upriver to his people and he will work for his passage. We can use him.
You keep adding people, somebody's going to have to swim alongside. That ain't much of a boat.
Now, Trent, this is no time to be at each other's throats. I know we are on the right track. Sandoval started getting excited the moment he saw this part of the river.
For a guy in his condition, you're doing a lot of depending on him.
You let me worry about that. All you have to do is handle your end of things, and that won't begin until we start diving.
You're wrong, Murdoch. I started worrying 3 years ago, remember? Two days on the river. 2 long days with Murdoch never once taking his eyes off Sandoval. Watching each slightest reaction, the bottle always ready. And the old man needed that bottle now, his terror growing by the minute, and Murdoch loving it because it told him we were getting closer. That night, I was laying out my gear back in the stern when Batu, the big native, came toward me. He wasn't the calm giant anymore, just a man, a terrified man with words tumbling out of his mouth.
You tell Batu. You tell.
Tell you what?
About crazy man.
Crazy? Sandoval? Or what about him?
Hands.
The scars? You mean how did he get them?
Yes.
I don't know what happened to his hands, but what about him?
Why you come here?
To dive. To bring something up from the water. Why?
No. Not go in water. No.
Why not? What's wrong?
Not go. Devil water. Devil water. You not go in devil water.
And that's all I could get out of him. Just that. It was a long time before I got to sleep that night. Late on the third day, we dropped anchor just outside a small cove. Murdoch was out of his mind with excitement, but it was too dark for diving. We'd start in the morning. Batu wanted to go ashore to see his people, swore he'd be back before sunup. Murdoch didn't like it, but he had no choice. We needed the big man on pumps. In the morning, we were up at dawn, and Batu was back aboard. He didn't say much, but he was never more than a couple of feet away from me, and his eyes never left me. But I didn't have time to think about it. I had my own troubles.
What's taking you so long, Trent?
Oh, you and your penny pinching. You've been had, Murdoch.
Well, what's wrong?
Well, not a thing, except this winch is on its last legs.
Well, let's not argue. Repair it the best you can.
Talk's cheap, but I'm the guy who goes down there.
Listen to me, Trent. We're close, really close. Sandoval swears it's right beneath us. He has to be right. He's pointed out landmarks all the way.
Wait a minute. What's that?
It's native drums, you know.
Probably a welcome. Get that chute closed, Trent. We're losing time.
You remember what I say about the clear lines down there, Senor?
I'll remember.
And don't you forget. Look, Senor. Look on the shore.
Natives, 6 or 7 of them.
It's part of Batu's tribe.
What's that they're carrying?
It looks like a pig or a goat.
And their throat is cut.
What is it, Batu? What are they doing?
Make sacrifice to river god.
But why now?
Save you.
From what? What's down there?
A native superstition, Trent. Where's your intelligence? Are you ready?
Batu.
You not stay in water long. Kataya!
On the beach, they heard his command, and the pig was thrown into the river. A moment later, Jose had bolted my helmet in place, and I was being lowered over the side of the boat. Everything was forgotten now. The work is staying alive. It's how it is with diving. You can do it 1,000 times, but it's always new. Jose knew it. Through the phone, I could hear him worrying with me.
You all right, Senor?
Yeah. Read me.
See? 11 fathoms.
Stay with me. I'm going to have a look around. I checked my lines and started toward a large mass of shadow. Distances underwater fool you. I was on it almost before I started. It was a ship, or what was left of one. Her back had been broken in two, and her stern was right in front of me. I read it aloud. Santa Rosa.
What's that, Senor?
I found it. Start a line down.
He's found it. You hear? He's found it.
I went in carefully, slowly, making sure of my lines. It didn't take me 20 minutes to find it. A tremendous iron-bound chest. I scratched the slime off with my knife, and there it was. The official seal of Paraguay. There wasn't any doubt now what was inside. I got a line around it, told them which way to swing the winch, and managed to get it out in the clear for the trip up. I just about finished when I felt a signal on my lines. What is it?
Batu says to get up here quick. You've been down too long.
Why?
Trent, this is Murdoch. Let's get to go left first. Another moment won't hurt you. Let's not take chances on a foul line.
Let's not take chances on me. Tell Jose to take me up.
If he tries it, I shall shoot him. The door comes up first. Stand clear, Trent.
Murdoch, listen. My knife is across the line. You turn that winch and I'll cut the line. You hear me?
You're insane. I can cut your air holes.
Go on, cut it. I'm tired of living with you on my back anyway.
Oh, all right, Trent, all right. Don't get excited. We're taking you up.
Slowly, they began taking me up. And then I realized why. Murdoch knew once I started up, I couldn't possibly cut the line that held the chest. He took me up just far enough to get my hands on the bottom rung of the Jacob's ladder and hang there helplessly. Then, through the phones, I could hear the creak of the winch as he started hauling up the chest. Looking up through the water, I could see Murdoch leaning over the rail as he waited for the chest to break water. And then it happened. A sudden sharp sting on my hand. And when I looked, I saw blood. Blood and a 6-inch fish racing in for another bite. In a second, there were more of them. Little needle-toothed devils plunging at the canvas suit, even trying to bite through the steel of the helmet to get at the flesh inside. And at last I understood everything. Why Batu called it devil water. Why Sandoval had gone insane. And what happened to the crew of the Santa Rosa. That 6-inch fish was the South American piranha, a cannibal so deadly it strips a man to the bone in 30 seconds. Then I heard something else. The winch. Murdoch had been driving it too fast, even for a good winch. It started to crumple just as the chest broke water. Murdoch saw the chest, inches from his hand, start slipping back. And the thought of losing the gold drove him crazy. He grabbed for it. Even as the chest pulled him down past me, he was still holding on to it. Even as the piranha left me to strip easier pickings than steel and canvas, he held on to it, and I knew he'd never let go. How could he? Hadn't the gold pulled him halfway around the world, and then climbed out of the water to get him?
Under the direction of Norman Macdonnell, Escape has brought you Blood Waters by Tony Barrett, starring Vic Perrin. Featured in the cast were Jack Crucian, Lillian Buyeff, Tony Barrett, and Barney Phillips. Your announcer, George Walsh. The special music for Escape is composed and conducted by Leith Stevens. Next week.
You are one of 4 people trapped in an isolated trading post somewhere in the Yukon Territory. The blizzard outside making escape impossible. And you know that before the spring thaws release you, before you can leave this cabin behind you, one of your companions, by consent of the others, will be killed.
So listen next week when Escape brings you Les Crutchfield's story, Judgment Day at Crippled Deer. Every weekday for 90 solid minutes, Arthur Godfrey Time presents that redhead himself, coming up with one surprise after another. And every Friday night on most of these same CBS radio stations, we take the top surprises, the best songs, the biggest laughs out of the daytime shows, and glue them together into a big once-a-week treat. Tomorrow night, don't miss the Arthur Godfrey Digest at the Star's Address. Daytime is a gay time with Arthur Godfrey Time on the CBS Radio Network.
And now, tonight's presentation of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. Tonight, we bring you a story about a man whose name was synonymous with death. We call it The Groom of the Ladder. So now, starring Hans Condrey, here is tonight's suspense play, The Groom of the Ladder.
Evening, Mr. Price.
Evening, William.
Oh, it's cold enough. Hard day for you, Mr. Price?
Well, I must say I'm fair wore out.
What you need is a bit of the old warming for the cockles.
True. It's cruel work for a man in this weather.
You hop down to the Blue Ball, Mr. Price. Have yourself a dollop.
Oh, I thought of that, but I happen to be a little short of funds tonight, William. I wonder...
Oh, have one for me, Mr. Price.
Oh, that's very nice of you, I must say, William. Very nice. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Price. My kindest regards to your wife, Mr. Price.
Thank you, William.
Ooh, what old dirty dog. I hope they give him what for at the Blue Boar.
Nasty little rat, that William Hartley. I've got to keep an eye on him. Hartley. What right's he got to look at me like that? I know what he's thinking. Get my job. A chance of that, I'll see him turned off first. God, I got a thirst. I should go home, I suppose. Better be grousing out of all neck. Oh, let her grouse. I got me rights. Blue Ball for me. Evening, one and all. Evening. Evening, Mr. White, Mrs. White, Mr. Love. Oi, Brenny, you spry as ever. Hey there, what's this all about? Somebody dead? So that's the way it is it? Keeper, ale! I said ale! Ale. Perhaps you didn't hear me the first time. Didn't you pay for it? Yes, I can pay for it. And more, don't you worry about me. I can pay for anything. You hear that, all of you? I don't need a bloody one of you. You'll all come to me one of these days. I heard the watchman are out looking for somebody. He don't pay his debts and he's going to Marshalsea prison for it. Who said that? Who said it?
I wonder who's going to get Jack Ketch's job when he's out of office.
Who called me that? My name's Price. John Price. John Price. John Price. Hear what I say? John Price.
I have such an horrible pain in my throat, Mr. Ketch, dear. Do you have a cure?
Got any old clothes for sale today, Mr. Ketch? Shut your faces, a lot of you. Stop! I'll do your mischief, that's what you hear. You stop it, turn back. There'll be none of that in here. If you want your ale, come over to the table and drink it. Otherwise, act. Oh, I'm sorry I lost my temper. I'm sorry, I'm just very tired tonight. Accept my apologies, Keeper. I don't accept nothing from you except your money. I have to serve you, my charter says so. But no trouble from you, or out you go, and that's a fact, and don't forget it. Why do they do it? Why, it's always like this. Either they don't say a blinking word or behave in that awful way. Can't they understand? I'm just like anybody else. I do my job, same as anyone. Gets lonely. Man sitting by himself, swilling ale, all by himself. Wish I had some money. I mean, some of the actual, not coppers, oh, I'd have friends then, lots of them. What was it they were saying about the watchman looking for me? Oh, they can't do that. I'll pay the debts what I owe, if I can only get a good job or two. Why don't they let the man alone? Not fair! Not fair.
What ain't fair, Mr. Price?
Oh, is it? Oh, William. William Hartley, huh? You, huh? You got off late tonight, didn't you?
That's right, Mr. Price. Having a bit of a guzzle, eh?
I will not stand familiarity, William Hartley. Kindly remember your place and station.
Oh, no offence intended. And none taken, I hopes.
Granted.
You mind if I sit down with my mug?
I don't mind.
Well, dear, long hours, short pay. That's the way of it.
William Hartley, why do you talk to me?
Why not, Mr. Price? You're my superior, ain't you? In a way, I has to talk to you.
I don't want you to have to. I want you to want to. Nobody wants to talk to me. Nobody wants me.
Could be worse, you know.
I don't beat my wife or the kid. I try to do what's right.
You're just misunderstood, Mr. Price. Misunderstood. I sympathize.
I want a friend. I want people to smile at me in the streets, talk to me, to like me.
Oh, you've got a burden, Mr. Price, and no mistake.
William, how'd you like to lend me 5 sovereigns? I could pay you back with interest. I got 1 or 2 odd debts to pay, you know.
I heard about that, Mr. Price. Harry White was...
Harry White, what's he know? He's after me job, just like you, William Hartley. You don't pull the wool over my eyes. I know.
How could you think such a thing, Mr. Price?
Why, you remember this. I'm not out of office yet. Remember, you stay nice to me, William, because I have a position. How about a couple of sovereigns? I know you got it, so there's no use denying.
Well, I'd like to oblige Mr. Price, so help me I would, but my wife's expecting again, and you know how it is with another mouth to feed.
How about a copper's worth of ale there?
You know, I was going to buy one for you, Mr. Price, but when I reached into my pocket, I found I had just enough for my own mug.
William Hartley, you are a dirty, sneaking little liar.
Mr. Price.
Don't you ever find yourself in trouble, because if you do, it's John Price who's going to be there taking loving care of you.
You are one. Stop it, anyone that thinks.
Hello, Mr. White. Mrs. White.
Good
Come on, Elizabeth. Time for us to be going home.
All right, Harry.
I said hello, that's all. I didn't do no harm, just hello. It's me, John Price, you know me. Can't you say hello? Hello, that's all. William Hartley, he come to the Blue Ball to laugh at me. That's how he gets his pleasure. They all do. And when I get home, it's going to be the same. Oh, I wish I was dead.
John Price, that's you? Where you been? I had a piece of mutton on the table at 6 o'clock.
Hello, Beth. Where's the kid?
Where you been? I've told you for the last time I ain't going to...
Betty, love. I had a very difficult job today. Like it broke me poor arm. I swore like a pig.
How much did you get?
The usual.
Hand it over.
Now, bad.
I should have known. You've been boozing at the Blue Boar. Spent every blessed penny.
I was tired, but I thought a sup would help.
Sup? I've said, by the look of you.
Sweetheart, we got a few shillings put by, haven't we?
Oh, no, you don't.
No, it's desperate, that girl. They'll have me in debtor's prison. I heard them talk tonight.
Do you good?
Don't say that. Love, it'll only be for a week, 2 at the most. I got to raise every penny I can.
That money's for me and the kid. You don't touch 1 farthing.
I'll lose my job.
Don't make me laugh. Your job. Call that a job? I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to have people know me name.
Now, Bet, I'm your husband. It's your duty to obey me. You give me what money we got in the house, and I'm going to...
Or what? What'll you do, Jack Ketch?
Now, Betty.
What'll you do to Mrs. Jack Ketch, you murderer? Murderer! My husband. What's he do for an honest living? Why, he's a murderer.
No, don't...
Mother, what does
Don't
Daddy do? He's got a lovely job, son.
Don't you try me.
No, your dear old dad turns people off for our bread. He's Jack Ketch, the public hangman. Hangman!
You are listening listening to The Groom of the Ladder, tonight's presentation in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
There are twice as many radios in the United States today as there were 10 years ago. Every minute of the broadcast day, millions are listening to radio, most of all to CBS Radio, which has all of the top 25 daytime programs and 8 of the top 10 once-a-week half-hour evening shows. Yes, leading the way as it goes and grows are the CBS Radio shows.
And now we bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Hans Conried, starring in tonight's production, The Groom of the Ladder, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
I suppose it was wrong to beat her like that. But what's a man to do? So, what with my debts and what I done to Bet, here I am in Marshalsea Prison. Not the first time I've been here, but what a stinking hole. All of us together, the muck of London. Men, women, and dogs. There's one lad though that ain't so bad. He come in yesterday. He's got learning. A gentleman, you can see that. Thomas Lovelace, his name. He's in debt to his eyes. £2,000.
I'll be here until I rot, Price.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, sir. There's always hope.
You've been here before?
3 times, sir. This is my 4th. And always for debt. Of course, there was the matter of my wife Betty this time.
What did you do for a living, Price? What's the matter?
Hadn't you noticed? The others, they never talk to me. Hadn't you noticed?
Not particularly.
I'll tell you why. Because I was in the employ of His Majesty. In service to the Crown. That's why.
That's why they don't talk to you?
Well, I suppose you won't either when I tell you. You'll find out in a day or so anyhow. What's the use? I'm the hangman.
Hangman? But I thought that Jack Ketch.
That's what they call me.
Oh.
I thought so. Go on, sir. I won't trouble you. You're a gentleman. You don't want the likes of me.
You haven't got a very savoury reputation, you know, Price.
It was my job. Somebody had to do it.
I've heard that you rather enjoyed it.
That's a lie.
What about the poor devils who paid you to put them out of their misery quickly?
I was happy to oblige. Poor souls. Sometimes they give me a few pence to help them through the awful passage to heaven. But Lord bless them, I did my best.
And if they didn't have any money?
I wouldn't hold it against them. Of course, I'm not denying that a nice rag or press job was worth a few shillings extra. But wouldn't you have taken the money? I ask you, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't have had your job, Price. Not for £1 million.
Oh, well, that's the way of it. Each man to what he knows. Right, Mr. Lovelace? My profession is hangman. Yours is to be a gentleman. Am I right, sir? And we're both of us in debtor's prison. Well, that gave him something to think about. He wasn't so high and mighty after that. Mr. Lovelace never had visitors. I didn't either. That is, not till one day, 3 months after I first come here. And it was William Hartley. And I didn't like the nasty weasel smile on him.
Well, Bryce, I heard about your misfortune and I came to sympathise.
How thoughtful, William.
How do they treat you in here?
Treat? Oh, like a bloomin' earl, can't you see?
Nasty smell down here.
We haven't brought in the fresh roses yet.
Nice. What about your debts, Price? Any luck?
No. It's only a matter of £5. William Hartley, you did you come here to help me? You're going to lend me the money. Have I misjudged you, William? Good friend.
No, you haven't misjudged me, Price. I didn't come here to lend you nothing. I've come here like a good Christian to see you had your health and spirits, and I brought you a prayer book for your poor soul to feed on.
Oh, blimey.
Change your ways, Price, change your ways before it's too late.
Don't change the shape of your head. You're proper, Mr. William Hartley. Let him go! Let him go! Get away from him, Price! Stop it! Have you gone mad?
But what can I do to you for this?
You shouldn't have done that, Price. I won't forget. You'll pay for that.
I paid 30 lashes and slum gullion for a month. Now, I wasn't going to forget William Hartley. Never in all my life. It was Mr. Lovelace who saved me a crust or two of bread when I was brought up from the Black Hole. It was the best meal I ever had. And then things were the same again. The weeks went by. I wrote a song ballad. Mr. Lovelace did the words in writing for me. I called it "The Man of Destiny's Hard Fortune, whereby his hopeful harvest is like to be blasted." And nobody bought it, though I still didn't have the money to pay me debts. Then I heard about Betty and the kid. They'd run off and left me. And that's when I made up my mind to get out of Marshalsea. That and William Hartley. Oh, I'd play a little claw on him. I told my idea to Mr. Lovelace one night. Mr. Lovelace?
Yes?
Come closer, sir. Listen, I'm getting out, see? Now, you've treated me right. I'm willing to take you with.
How can you? You've got these chains. It's impossible.
No, it ain't. They take them off in the afternoon when we exercise, don't they? All right. That's the time.
How?
You leave that to me. You want to go with?
I'd rather die trying than stay.
All right, sir. Now, here's what we do. There's a woodshed next to the gate of the yard. Door's always open. When we have our constitutional tomorrow, we hop in there and wait till it's dark.
One of the keepers will see us.
No, there's a new one on. I've been watching him. He's been drunk for a week. Easy as pie. You wait. We did it. Stayed hiding behind the wood till night. I felt funny without the chains on after so long. And then about 10 o'clock, we started out of the shed. I took a thick stick from the wood pile. Come on.
It will be locked.
I have to do a bit of climbing then, eh? All clear. He's asleep.
We have to pass him, supposing he wakes up.
He won't.
Look!
Hurry up now. Give me an hand up first, and then I'll pull you over.
Right.
All right. Now, give me your hand. There. Up you go. And there's London. Ain't that the loveliest sight? William Hartley's out there, isn't it? Come on. We stayed together till we was well out of sight of the prison, and then Mr. Lovelace said goodbye.
I'll leave you here, Price. I can't thank you enough for helping me. We shan't meet again, I suppose, but I'll always remember you. Goodbye.
And he went his way. A couple of minutes later, I found a broom maker going home from selling his wares. And after a short argument, I had 2 silver shillings in my pocket. I tossed for it. William Hartley, now or later. My first one. And that took me to the nearest alehouse in Bunhill Fields. Hartley'd have to wait, but not for long. I was going to do him a mischief. Pay the little scut back before the night was out.
It was 2 hours later that I left the alehouse with a lovely swishing in my belly and happiness in my head. Funny thing, I couldn't on the life of me remember what I had to do. But there was something. Oh, his groans was dreadful for to hear, as the stones they pressed upon him, and Jack stood solemn, not shedding a tear, when the... Hello, who's there?
It's me, Elizabeth White. Is that you, John Price? I thought you were in Marshalsea.
Elizabeth White, well, I never. What you doing in Bunhill Fields this time of night?
Well, I had an order of gingerbread to deliver.
No.
You frightened me.
Oh, me frightened? Oh, I'm all right, you know that. Well, I've had one or two, but nobody can say John Price can't behave like a gentleman.
You are wicked.
Oh, I wish I was married to a sweet woman like you, Elizabeth. Oh, how I envy your husband.
Oh, now, Mr. Price.
Well, I apologize. Humbly. Do you hate me?
Of course not. I never hated you. It was Harry didn't want me to talk to you.
No, I mean, 'cause I'm angry.
Ah, you're not anymore, anyway.
I'm really very gentle at heart, you know. I'm just misunderstood by one and all.
I suppose.
Elizabeth, I've always had a liking for you.
Mr. Price.
Have you got a little money put away? We could make it a business arrangement, just you and me, huh? And I'll pay you next month, how's that? Huh?
I haven't got anything, Mr. Price.
Hold on, I meant maybe a shilling or two. You must have cut something for the gingerbread.
Please, Mr. Price, my Harry...
Well, it ain't honourable for a man in my position to be in debt. There's no one to turn to. Come on, I'll pay you back. I swear it, I'm desperate.
No, Mr.
Would
Price.
you keep it, huh? Stop it, John. Watchman down. Stop it now. Give it over, you hear me? I need this, you see, I need it. I told you I'd pay you. Shut it up! Shut it up! Shut it up! Well, here we are again. Newgate this time. The watchman got me. But he was too late for Elizabeth White. I'm afraid I done had him, poor soul. I'm to hang for it, so there you are. I can hear him coming for me now. God, I'd like a last swig of something to see me on my way. God, William Hartley.
Are you ready, John Price?
You nasty little winkle. You mean you're the hangman?
I am.
God block. I was coming back to turn you off, you maggoty one, and I forgot. Or you wouldn't be here now.
I bear you no malice, John Price.
Oh, you won't make no hangman. Not for long, you won't. You wait. You wait. They'll start calling you Jack Catch. You wait.
It's my duty. I always knew that someday I'd find my calling to protect the people from such poor wretches as you. I have found it.
God blimey. I might have known. I might have known. Bar meter. Well, I for one haven't got a brass farthing for you. My clothes, they won't fetch tuppence, so blast you.
I don't want neither. It's me job, John Price. Turning you off is me job, and that's what I'm going to do. You've come to a wicked end, as I knew you would.
If I'm going to nab the stifles, and it's William Hartley what's going to do it, I'm better off dead. Here, William, you write something for me on the wall, will you? Yeah, I've got some charcoal. Yeah, right here. What? All right, now you write this. Right, here died John Price, hangman of London. He was turned off upon the gallows, which he had served so well in his day. God save the King in the year 1686.
Suspense, in which Hans Conried starred in tonight's presentation of The Groom of the Ladder. Be sure to listen in again next week when we bring you another presentation of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense. Produced and directed in Hollywood by Anthony Ellis, who also wrote tonight's script. The music was composed by Lucien Moraweck and conducted by Wilbur Hatch. In tonight's story, Ben Wright was heard as Hartley. Featured in the cast were Raymond Lawrence, Richard Peele, Bill James, Doris Lloyd, Betty Harford, and Stan Jones.
Nobody's selling the Brooklyn Bridge anymore, but don't for a minute think that because that racket has been exposed, 100 others just as bizarre aren't flourishing right now. Underworld characters who want an easy buck and aren't fussy how they make it are endlessly inventive in that way. Fortunately, the agents of the FBI are even quicker and shrewder in their counter-efforts to foil their plans and ferret them out of hiding. You can hear another startling drama revealing one more of those clever plans and its ultimate defeat on that popular CBS radio program, The FBI in Peace and War, over most of these same stations tomorrow night. Remember, The FBI in Peace and War, tomorrow night. Stay tuned for 5 minutes of CBS News, to be followed on most of these same CBS radio stations by The Jack Carson Show.
Fed up with the everyday grind, tired out by the dull routine, want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape. Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
You are speeding through the English countryside, the fast express train rocking beneath your feet. And you know that somewhere in the dark ahead of you, a band of men are plotting the destruction of the train, are planning the moment of your death.
Today we escape to England at the turn of the century and the story of a complete train that vanished from the face of the earth. As Sir Arthur Conan Doyle told it in his fascinating tale, The Lost Special.
"20 years with Scotland Yard have brought me into contact with many weird and unusual events in human affairs, but none more strange than the occurrences which began on the afternoon of June the 3rd, 1890, in the railway station at Liverpool. On no case before had I ever felt myself so helpless, groping blindly, as it were, for an unseen adversary, not being certain of the nature of the crime, not even knowing, in fact, if it were a crime. Suffice to say that along a short stretch of railway line in Western England, I learned what is truly meant by terror of the unknown. At 4 o'clock of the afternoon in question, having completed a rather minor investigation which had brought me to Liverpool, I was sitting in the waiting room of the railway station reading and waiting for the 6 o'clock train for London, entirely unaware at that moment of a rather ordinary conversation that was taking place in the office of Mr. James Bland, the station master, a few yards away.
I'm very happy to know you, Mr. Carroll, and you, Mr. Gomez. And now, if I might learn the nature of your wishes?
Simply this, Mr. Bland. My companion and I have arrived on the steamer from Central America, which docked less than an hour ago. It is of the utmost importance that we reach London as quickly as possible in order to arrange passage across the Channel to France.
I see. Well, it's unfortunate you missed the 3 o'clock train, Mr. Carroll. However, there'll be a limited leaving at 6 that will put you in London.
That is not soon enough, Mr. Bland. I cannot stress too highly the importance of my reaching Paris at the earliest possible moment.
I can understand that, but there simply isn't any other train in
Quite
6.
so. Quite so. I am informed, however, that it is possible to charter a special train upon occasion.
A special? Yes, it's possible. Rather expensive, though.
The cost is not important, Mr. Bland. How soon can the arrangements be made?
Well, Mr. Hood, do we have an engine available?
Yes, sir. Number 247 is on the north siding under emergency steam.
Good. Very well, Mr. Carroll. It's 4:08 now. We can roll a special out of here at 4:30. The charge is £55.
Gomez, you will pay Mr. Bland £55.
Who is on the standby crew, Mr. Hood?
Let's see. John Slater is engineer, McPherson guard, Smith fireman.
Call them at once. Have them carry 2 standard coaches behind the engine. And telegraph the station master at St. Helens to hold the local on siding there until the special goes through. Make sure the line is clear as far as Manchester.
Yes, sir.
I'll send for a porter to take care of your briefcase, Mr. Carroll. Seems to be rather heavy.
Thank you, no. I prefer to keep it with me, if you don't mind.
Certainly, whatever you wish. Now, if you leave here at 4:30, you should be in Manchester at 6:15. The station master there will clear you on to London. And I trust you'll have a very pleasant journey.
As I say, I was not aware of these events until a while later, and would have placed no significance on them in any case. At 4:31, the special train with its 2 passengers and 3 crew members pulled out of Liverpool station and headed for Manchester. And at 10 minutes to 6, I was summoned to the office of Mr. James Bland, the station master.
And so that seems to be it. Very likely I have no real reason at all to be worried, Inspector Collins. But since I saw you below there in the station, I thought it wise to call you in on it.
Well, I'm happy to be of any help, Mr. Bland. As I understand it, your special train is running behind schedule, is that it?
Incredibly behind schedule. Nearly half an hour overdue at Manchester right now. We've wired them to check and report back.
It isn't exactly unheard of for a train to run slow, Mr. Bland.
It is, unless there's some reason, and I can't think of one in this case. The special had clear track all the way. It passed through St. Helens at 4:52, right on time. They wired us, and then 15 minutes later released the local to follow along behind it into Manchester.
You mentioned something about Mr. Catterall having a companion, I believe.
Yes, a great hulking brute named Gomez. He didn't utter a word while they were here. Seemed to be a sort of bodyguard. Catterall himself was small and stooped, with a swarthy complexion, possibly a Latin American.
And you got the impression that he was carrying something rather valuable in his briefcase.
Yes, he wouldn't let it out of his hands. And he seemed to be in great fear of something, though I haven't any idea what it may have been.
What about this second chap, Horace Moore?
Typically English, about 40 years old, seemed very anxious to reach his sick wife in London.
Here's Manchester on the wire now, Mr. Bland.
Well, good. What are they...
Well, just a moment. Well, here's a message. Assumed change in your original plan. Local from St. Helens arrived Manchester. Reports no sign, special train.
Oh, but that's impossible. St. Helens reported the special through ahead of the local.
Is there a branch line between St. Helens and Manchester, Mr. Bland?
No, not even a double track. There's only a single track main line straight through. Sidings, of course, at the local stations for loading purposes. But, Mr. Hood...
Yes, sir?
Check every local operator from St. Helens on. We've got to get to the bottom of this. I can't understand it, Inspector Collins. A locomotive and 2 coaches can't simply... Well, it's utterly impossible. It can't have just disappeared.
In a few moments, the answers began coming in over the wire. The first was from St. Helens.
Repeating our previous message, a special train passed here at 4:52, local departed 15 minutes later.
Then from Collins Green.
Special passed here at 5 o'clock, followed by local train 17 minutes later.
And then Earlstown.
Special passed here 5:06, followed by local 18 minutes later.
Newton.
Special passed here 5:12, local train 17 minutes later.
At Kenyon Junction.
Special through here at 5:20, local passed 19 minutes later.
And then Barton Moss.
Local through at 5:53. No special train passed here today.
I tell you, it's absolutely unprecedented, Inspector Collins. An entire train and 5 human beings vanishing from an open track between 2 local stations only 8 miles apart. It's impossible.
There's the only thing to the contrary being the fact that it has apparently happened.
But I can't understand it.
Mr. Bland, I think you'd better make arrangements to get us out to Kenyon Junction as quickly as possible. Within 10 minutes, we were in a coach behind a goods engine moving at full throttle on the main line east out of Liverpool. Since the missing special had been reported safely through Kenyon Junction, there was no need for concern with the country this side of that station. While the coach rattled and banged along the miles, we spent the time poring over a large-scale map of that 8-mile stretch between the junction and Barton Moss.
As you can see for yourself on the map, Inspector Collins, it's rather open country through there.
Yeah.
Low rolling hills mostly, with quite a lot of coal mining and one steel mill. No towns or villages near the railway line.
Yes, so I see, Mr. Bland. What about these spur tracks that join the main line? There must be a dozen or more of them.
14, to be exact.
Isn't it possible the special could have been switched onto one of those spurs?
Well, yes and no. 8 of them can be eliminated immediately. Besides being narrow-gauge tracks, they're also much too flimsy to bear the weight of a standard locomotive. Furthermore, they end at loading bins adjacent to the main line. They're not actually connected to it.
I see. Well, that still leaves 6. Are they all standard gauge?
Yes, but 3 of those 6 can be eliminated too, since they've been abandoned for years. The mines they were built for are no longer operated. The Red Gauntlet, Despond, and Heartsease collieries.
Yes, but abandoned or not, if the tracks are still there, couldn't they be used?
No, they could not. When service to the 3 mines was discontinued years ago, the switches, along with several hundred yards of track adjacent to the main line, were removed to prevent accidents.
Well, that settles that. But we still have 3 lines left.
Yes, and all in operation. They serve the Big Ben and Perseverance collieries and the Carnstock Ironworks.
Good. But there's the probable area of our investigation.
Probable? Inspector, I fail to see anything probable about a train scheduled for Manchester turning up in a dead-end siding.
Well, for many years now, Mr. Bland, I've been approaching problems of this sort with a certain theory of logic. Once both the obvious and the impossible are eliminated, and we seem to agree on those, then the solution must lie in the realm of the improbable, no matter how fantastic it may at first seem.
I can't believe it. Why wouldn't the train crew report in? What about Mr. Carroll's anxiety to get to London? Why wouldn't
Wait. We're slowing down, aren't we?
That's right, sir. We're pulling into Kenyon Junction.
This is the last station to report seeing the lost special. Very well, gentlemen. This is where we start to work. We stopped in the junction only long enough to rig acetylene spot lanterns at either side of the coach, directed in such fashion as to light up the roadbed and embankment along both sides of the track. And then we puffed slowly out onto the main line and headed towards Barton Moss, 8 miles away. The first mile of those 8 dropped behind us and brought no significant discovery, and we moved on through the second mile. Save for the flood of light from our lanterns and the dull red glow from the firebucks of the engine, the night was as black as pitch. Now and again, the ugly shape of a loading bin for one of the narrow-gauge feeder lines would loom out of the darkness ahead of us and float past, ghostly for a moment in our lights, and then dissolve away behind us into the blackness. But on the roadbed, the rails themselves remained unmarred, undisturbed, and offered not the slightest clue to explain a disappearance that grew more mysterious by the minute. We completed the second mile and moved on, and then suddenly...
What is it, Inspector? What do you see?
Stop the engine at once, Mr. Hood.
Yes, sir. What is it, Inspector?
I think I've seen something.
I don't see a thing.
It's just off the embankment there, in the edge of the bushes. We'll need a handlight.
Here you are, sir.
Good. All right, come on now, let's have a look.
By heaven, there is something right enough.
I see now. Well, it looks like a man lying there.
Oh, it's more likely the body of a man from the position he's in. Well now, lad. All right, let's turn you over and have a glimpse at your face, huh?
What? Inspector? Why, this is John Slater.
Ah? And who is John Slater?
He was the engineer on the special.
Oh. Well, he's dead. His neck's broken.
Dead?
I'll venture a quick guess it was caused by a fall from the cab of his engine. Travelling rather fast at the time, I'd say. You can see where he rolled through the bushes for some little distance there.
But then what happened to the locomotive, Inspector? Afterward, I mean.
Well, that still remains to be seen, Mr. Hood. We can be fairly certain of one thing, though. The special must have come at least this far out of the junction. Otherwise, it's pretty difficult to account for the engineer's body being here.
No more difficult, surely, than it is to account for any of this. This whole thing is incredible. Impossible.
Well, we still have our improbabilities, Mr. Bland. Those 3 connected spur lines are ahead of us yet, and the chances are one of them is going to supply some kind of an answer. By midnight, I'd completed a thorough check of the 3 lines. The first one, to the Big Ben colliery, ran 1.5 miles back into the hills and ended against the face of a huge pile of coal. Not large enough, however, to cover a locomotive and 2 coaches. I made certain of that. The line to the Perseverance colliery was hardly more than 1/2 mile long. It had been blocked all day, and it was still blocked by a string of loaded ore cars, and ended beyond them against the open rock face of a quarry. The last line, running to the Carnstock Ironworks, was a double track, and had been left open all day. However, a sleepy superintendent informed me that over 200 repairmen had been busy on the roadbed until well after dusk, and it was impossible to imagine a non-scheduled train passing through such a horde of witnesses unnoticed. Oh, shortly after midnight, dog-tired, we walked into Barton Moss Station, still without the slightest explanation of the mystery. I want to send a wire through to Scotland Yard.
Scotland Yard? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm prepared to postpone further investigation.
Investigation?
Until daylight.
Yes, sir.
Then sign it, Collins. Can you get that up right away?
Right away, sir.
Peaceful English countryside in a dead engine driver.
You speaking to me, sir?
Yeah, no. It is strange, though.
Strange, sir?
In broad daylight, a 40-ton locomotive with 2 carriages and 4 passengers has vanished from the face of the earth.
In just a moment, we will return to Escape. But first, 10 great shows come to you every Sunday night on CBS, and right and bright in the middle is America's #1 comedy, The Jack Benny Show. Tomorrow night, Jack will take his place on CBS All-Star Night with a cast that's made The Jack Benny Show a welcome visitor in millions of American homes. Yes, Jack Benny, Amos and Andy, Helen Hayes, Eve Arden, and all the other great stars come to you over most of these same stations in CBS's 10 great shows on Sunday nights. And now, with our star, Ben Wright, we return to the second act of Escape and The Lost Special.
By the next morning, of course, the story was out and the daily papers went to work on it. But fortunately for Scotland Yard, the main attention of the press was directed at the moment toward the international scandal, which had been brewing for a week or two among high financial circles in France. As it was, however, letters to the editor in the Morning Post gave us quite a rough go of it. Oh, with all manner of crackpot suggestions.
It's difficult to believe that the worthy operators of Scotland Yard have overlooked the one obvious explanation as to the whereabouts of the missing train. May I advise them that some 2 miles from Barton Moss, the railroad line crosses the West Branch Canal. Unquestionably, the special leapt from the bridge and lies now in the muddy water.
This whole affair is obviously the work of some subversive organization. And until the culprits are brought in to face their just deserts, no man, woman, or child in England can be considered safe. Now, my advice
we are
to the matter...
witnessing the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. The forces of evil grow bolder and begin now to invade the earth openly. There is no doubt but what that strange man Caratol was really the devil in disguise, and it is
Our
high
first
time.
action this morning is to gaze quickly across the city toward Westminster Abbey. Considering the recently demonstrated inefficiency of Scotland Yard and the Manchester-Liverpool railway affair, it's quite possible the Abbey may be spirited away some night soon.
A week passed, and then 2 weeks. We scoured the whole western countryside, following up every lead, tracking down each rumor, and we got nowhere. 3 weeks, 4, and then the press began to ignore the matter. 2 months went by. Nothing new. 3 months, and the activity of Scotland Yard in the matter had come to a standstill. The reason was simple enough. We had no idea what else to do. So the records were finally taken from the active file and marked, case still open and unsolved. Even though I worked on other assignments, my mind kept turning continually back to the case of the Lost Special. I tried to think of some avenue left untried, some path overlooked, and I could think of nothing. I reviewed all of the improbabilities I'd tested and disproved, and I tried to... Improbabilities. Suddenly a fallacy in my own logic began to dawn on me. Arbitrarily, I had called certain explanations impossible, and touched them only lightly in my investigation. And yet what could really be classed as impossible in a case which itself was utterly impossible? Back down to Barton Moss again, and then 10 days of painstaking work. At the end of those 10 days, I was certain that I'd found at least the essentials of the answer, and I was equally certain that I could never prove it. I could see only one bare chance, a desperate chance against long odds. I laid my plan before the Chief Inspector, and then Scotland Yard went into action.
The London Times, 21st November 1890. Rumours are circulating that a man named Dalton, arriving in Liverpool on the steamer Vistula tomorrow, may hold the key to the long-standing Manchester Railway mystery. According to reliable sources, Mr. Dalton possesses recently discovered copies of the documents which were carried in the briefcase of the ill-fated Mr. Carratol. It is further stated that Scotland Yard is arranging to meet Mr. Dalton at the Liverpool pier and rush him forthwith to London.
The next afternoon, accompanied by Mr. Dalton, I walked into the office of Mr. James Bland, station master at Liverpool, and chartered a special train for London.
We shall have the train ready for you to leave in 10 minutes, Inspector Collins.
Good. I'm most anxious to get Mr. Dalton and his briefcase to London as quickly as possible.
Yes, I saw the squib in yesterday's paper, and I was afraid then you'd be wanting a special train arranged. I'm still worried about it, as a matter of fact.
Oh, I hardly think there's any need to be. You've run a good many specials up to Manchester since that affair 6 months ago, and you've never lost another one, now have you?
No, but I'll confess I've shaken in my boots every time I've watched one of them pull out of here.
I say now, you're going to have me jumping at my own shadow.
Oh, don't worry, Mr. Dalton. I'll have you in London before you know it, and none the worse for the trip.
Nevertheless, Inspector, you'll have to admit the situation today is very much like the one 6 months ago.
Oh, yes, in some ways.
The mysterious stranger arriving by steamer from South America, and in urgent haste to reach London. The carefully watched briefcase, which, according to rumour, contains the very same sort of material Mr. Carratol was carrying.
But there is one difference. Mr. Dalton is being accompanied by an agent from Scotland Yard.
Yes, but Mr. Carratol also had a guard, that chap Gomez, and both of them disappeared.
Oh, come now. Surely you don't think that anything so fantastic could possibly...
Oh, no, he's right, Mr. Dalton. It did happen once, and a number of the elements are similar. Well, Mr. Bland, I'll wire you as soon as we reach Manchester.
Hardly necessary, Inspector. I think I shall go along with you.
Well, good. But if you're looking forward to excitement, I can't promise you.
No, it will probably be a very ordinary trip. But if I stayed here, I'd be a nervous wreck by the time you reached Manchester.
Well, then come along by all means. Mr. Dalton and I will enjoy your company.
Your train is just pulled up the platform, gentlemen.
Good. Well, gentlemen, we can't keep the fates waiting, huh? Let's get aboard.
Well, it's certainly been an uneventful journey so far.
Why, I hardly expected anything to happen this side of Kenyon Junction, and it's right ahead of us there.
Inspector Collins, do you mean you are expecting something to happen on the other side of it?
Oh, yes, that's the whole purpose of the trip.
I don't believe I follow you.
Yes, I imagine it is about time that you were brought in on this, Mr. Bland. I didn't want to take any chances by discussing it before we were well along towards the danger area.
We're passing through Kenyon Junction, Inspector.
Good. Mr. Dalton there is a Scotland Yard agent, by the way, Mr. Bland.
Oh?
And all he's carrying in that mysterious briefcase is half a dozen ham sandwiches.
I think I should welcome some sort of explanation, Inspector Collins.
Yes, did you ever hear of the old trick an archer uses when he loses an arrow? He shoots another in the same general direction, follows it, and sometimes he finds both of them. Well, this train and all of us aboard it constitute the second arrow, Mr. Bland.
Do you mean you're expecting this train to vanish like the other? Why, you're deliberately risking our lives.
Oh, the risk is not quite so great as you may imagine.
But what makes you believe the attempt will be repeated?
I've created as nearly as possible the same set of conditions that led to the first disappearance. If I'm right about the motivation, the parties concerned can hardly afford not to repeat.
What motivation? I fail to see one.
Well, it requires a bit of assuming, Mr. Bland, but the assumptions seem to fit the facts as well as the method used. Let's take some of those facts. Mr. Carratol was in a frantic hurry to reach Paris. His briefcase apparently contained something of great value. He was afraid an attempt would be made to prevent his reaching Paris.
Yes.
In Paris at that time, a huge financial scandal was brewing, which later came to nothing because of lack of evidence. The scandal involved illegal land operations in Central America. Mr. Caratol had just arrived from Central America with his briefcase.
Even so?
Yeah, and finally, it must require a good deal of money to bring about the disappearance of a locomotive and coaches, whereas ordinary criminals rarely have a good deal of money. Now, do you follow me?
Yes. Yes, of course. If all that's true, then the idea was to eliminate Caratol completely, along with his evidence.
And that's exactly what was done.
Inspector, we just passed the spot where John Slater's body was found.
Well, then heads up, Mr. Dalton. It's only a few hundred yards now.
Tell me this, Inspector. Have you also discovered how the thing was done?
Oh, yes. But I'm in the unfortunate position of not being able to prove it.
And what do you think it's going to prove if the same thing happens to us?
Oh, that. Well, I forgot to mention that there are 20 agents of Scotland Yard concealed in the coach behind us. They're specially selected, armed with rifles, and are there for the express purpose of making sure the same thing does not happen to us.
We're slowing down, Inspector Collins. Well, I think this is it.
Slowing down? Why?
We're leaving the main line.
But we can't leave the main line. There's no siding here.
Oh, yes, there is. There's the spur track to the Heartsease colliery.
But it's abandoned. There's no connection to the main line. The rails were taken away years ago.
Ordinarily, you would be right, Mr. Bland, but at the moment there's an excellent switch installed at the main line, and also a very serviceable set of rails connecting it with the old track. We're traveling over them now, as a matter of fact. You see anything, Mr. Dalton?
Not yet, sir.
The train is being manned, incidentally, by Scotland Yard agents. I took the liberty of holding the regular crew in the coach behind us until we could find out which of them had been bought off, which scheduled to end up like John Slater.
But I must confess...
Inspector, look. Men are coming out of the bushes behind us. They're already starting to pull up the rails.
You'll see, Mr. Bland. In 15 minutes, you'll be right again. There'll be no connection between the Heartsease siding and the main line.
Yes. Yes, I see now. By heaven, I never would
Mr.
have...
Bland, it won't do any good to try to signal with that pocket handkerchief.
I'm afraid I don't quite understand you, Inspector.
Then perhaps you'll understand the fact that you're under arrest for the murder of Caratol, Gomez, and John Slater.
Why, that's utterly ridiculous. Why have we stopped?
In order to permit the... here's your answer. I think that 20 agents of Scotland Yard should prove more than a match for your assistance.
Your guesses are nothing less than preposterous, Inspector. What could I or anyone else gain by merely switching a train onto an abandoned siding? The other special, if you recall, disappeared.
Ah, yes, so it did. And straight ahead of us, a mile and a half, if you recall, Mr. Bland, this spur ends at the Heartsease mine shaft, one of the largest inclined shafts in this part of the country. According to the records, it used to be 900 feet deep. But upon investigating it last week, I found it closed off by a tremendous cave-in at 400 feet. Now tell me, Mr. Bland, was the cave-in caused by the explosion of the locomotive's boiler when it struck the bottom? Or did you dynamite the shaft after the train went into it?
You've no proof of any of this and no evidence whatsoever against me.
Your train crew in the coach behind us have all signed statements. And I think we'll get a good deal more evidence from the men who are being rounded up out there now.
I have nothing further to say.
Well, there's nothing you can say, Mr. Bland. We've seen your bank account with those mysterious and heavy entries which are dated about the time the special disappeared, which I'm sure we shall be able to trace to certain French sources. We've succeeded in tracing down Macpherson and Smith, the fireman and conductor you bribed to vanish. Too bad you couldn't bribe Slater, the engineer, because his death was most unfortunate. You see, his body furnished us with our first clue. Yes, Mr. Bland. Without Slater's body, we might really have thought that the lost special had disappeared into thin air.
Escape is produced and directed by Norman MacDonald. Today we have presented The Lost Special by Conan Doyle, adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield, with editorial supervision by John Dunkel. Starred as Inspector Collins was Ben Wright, and the featured players were Parley Bear, John Daner, Edgar Berrier, Larry Dobkin, and Paul Frees. The special music was arranged and played by Ivan Ditmars. Next week...
You are aboard the Orient Express, rushing through the European night, bound for Constantinople. And in your compartment with you, a gun pointed at your head, a small, mysterious foreigner is about to take your life.
Next week, we escape with Graham Greene's exciting novel of intrigue, Orient Express. Goodbye then until this same time next week, when CBS again offers you Escape. For more adventures, seek it out with two top CBS shows tonight. The Adventures of Philip Marlowe and Gangbusters, both regular Saturday features on most of the same CBS network stations. Be sure to hear them tonight. Now, stay tuned for 5 minutes of the latest news, to be followed by the Let's Pretend program over most of these same CBS stations. This is Roy Rowan speaking for CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Suspense. And the producer of radio's outstanding theater of thrills, the master of mystery and adventure, William N. Robson.
It is said, revenge is sweet. But is it? Can the eye of your enemy restore your sight? Or his tooth chew your daily bread? Or his life resurrect your beloved dead? Such questions do tonight's story raise, not forgetting the while to keep you in suspense. Think about them as you listen, and listen well, as Myron McCormick stars in Madman of Manhattan, which begins in just a moment.
Welcome, William Bendix.
Nobody can act up to par with a nasty cold. I check my cold distress the fast way, with 4-way cold tablets.
Yes, tests of 4 leading cold tablets proved 4-way fastest acting of all. Amazing 4-way starts in minutes to relieve aches, pains, headache, reduce fever, calm upset stomach, also overcomes irregularity.
4-way is the fast way to relieve those cold miseries. Then you feel better quickly.
4-way cold tablets, only 29 and 59 cents.
Here's a word about another fine product of Grove Laboratories. Had dandruff for years? Now get rid of it in 3 minutes with Fitch Dandruff Remover Shampoo. 3 minutes with Fitch regularly is guaranteed to keep unsightly dandruff away forever. Apply Fitch before wetting hair. Rub in 1 minute. Add water. Lather 1 minute. Then rinse 1 minute. Every trace of dandruff goes down the drain. 3 minutes with Fitch, embarrassing dandruff's gone. Fitch can also leave hair up to 35% brighter. Get Fitch Dandruff Remover Shampoo today. And now, Madman of Manhattan, starring Mr. Myron McCormick. A tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Position of authority.
Come here.
You can always tell by their voices.
Sign up.
Commanding. The smaller the authority, the more commanding the voice.
You hear me?
Yes, sir. Sign out, you said. Here?
Right below where you signed when you came in.
What?
Oh, perfect forgery.
Beg your pardon?
Well, I mean, your signature is an almost exact copy.
You object?
No, sir.
Do you think you're talking to one of your, lunatics upstairs?
No, sir.
Sir. Always call me sir. I enjoy being called sir. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Westland. Sir.
Walk slowly. No need to hurry. No need at all. That's right. Light a cigarette. Must be some in the pockets. Yes. What brand did Mr. Westland smoke? Excellent. Light it. No need to run. There won't be an alarm for at least 20 minutes. Why think of that? No need to think of that. One look back over the shoulder, casually. Casually.
Well, it's pleasant to be on the outside looking in after 2 years in an insane asylum.
And now what do you have?
This is a restaurant.
Are you kidding?
And you're a waitress. Lovely waitress.
Look, do you or don't you want something to eat?
I'd much rather look at you.
Look, mister.
I'm going to take you out of all this.
Oh, sure.
Furs, diamonds warm against your skin.
Hey, let go my hand.
Your name is Fay. I see it embroidered on your uniform. Fay. Mm-hmm. Now, Fay, listen to me.
The manager's looking over here.
I'll tell you something you can tell to your children. To your children's children and their children's children's children.
A comedian.
Now listen, this will be the biggest thrill of your life. I just escaped from Bellevue.
What?
I'm Lacey Adams. Been in the psychopathic ward in Bellevue for 2 years.
You don't say.
Nicholas Westland, my lawyer, came to see me. When we were alone, I strangled him to death. Yes. I changed clothes with him, signed his name on my way out. It'll be in the papers.
Yeah, I'll remember to read about it.
I had a wife once. Kate. They say I killed her. So I must have killed her.
Sure, you killed her.
No, I didn't. Martin Avery killed her.
Sure, Martin Avery killed her. And now, what are you gonna have?
Martin Avery. That's what I'm gonna have. Anyone minding the store?
I'm coming.
Oh, hello, Pop.
Well, what do you want? Got something you want to hawk? Don't bother me with it. Everybody's selling. Nobody's buying.
You got me wrong, Pop. I'm a buyer. I want to buy a .45 automatic.
Got a permit?
No.
You from the police?
No.
Got any identification?
Yeah.
Lawyer, huh?
That's right.
There you are. Be $35.
Thanks, Pop. I won't forget this. Neither will, a friend of mine.
In a moment, we continue with the second act of Suspense. With your permission, we'd like to talk shop for just a moment. CBS Radio Shop. Recently, one of the foremost publications in the broadcasting field polled 465 critics and editors. The question, which radio network programs do you rate tops? When the answers from these 465 experts were tabulated, the final ratings were overwhelmingly one-sided. Total honors accorded CBS radio programs exceeded those of all the other networks combined. Let's put it another way. The final verdict of hundreds of critics, reviewers, and editors was that CBS Radio had more top shows than all other networks put together. CBS Radio was pleased, naturally, at the result of the poll, but not surprised. Great programming is no accident. It's long been a policy of this network to devote every effort to maintaining the highest broadcast standards. Whatever listening fare is for you, you can be sure you're hearing the best when you're tuned to CBS Radio. And now, starring Mr. Myron McCormick, Act 2 of Madman of Manhattan.
A little late to call on Martin Avery, but our business won't wait. May I blow your brains out, Mr. Martin Avery? Thank you, sir. How do they say it in the movies? You want it in the belly or the back? Your choice, Martin. Your choice.
Lacey.
May I come in?
Lacey, you're in Bellevue.
But you see, I'm not.
They'll find you.
They'll find you first.
I don't expect anything from you, Lacey. You're a sick man. I feel sorry for you. I have my wife and child, my son, here in the apartment, so put that away.
This gun? It's just to keep your voice down. It's a toy. It can't hurt. It kills.
Put it down.
Oh, wouldn't you like that?
After all, Lacey, we were friends once. You wouldn't kill me.
I just killed Nick Westland. That's how I escaped.
Westland? You killed Westland?
You can always find another lawyer. It shouldn't upset you. Anyway, he wasn't your lawyer, it was mine. Never liked you. He liked me.
He was trying to help you.
He did.
What do you want with me?
Company.
Company?
That's what I missed most of all, Martin. Can you believe that? Company. 2 years, no one to talk to. Oh, a doctor, sure, but not really anyone. 2 years, Martin. No one ever came to see me, to talk to me.
I'm sorry.
Why didn't you come, Martin?
Well, I wanted to, but I didn't think it would accomplish anything.
Just to say hello, for old times'
Look,
sake.
I told you, I didn't think that...
Relax, Martin. It's going to be a long night. Maybe you won't see the end of it, Martin. Depends, we'll see. Depends on whether you say things I want to hear, whether you do things I like. It's up to me. Yes. I waited a long time, and now it's up to me. Look at him. Look at Martin Avery. Standing alone in the study of his Better Homes and Gardens apartment. Alone with only me to keep you company. Yes, everything must be going exceptionally well for you. Everything must have paid off for you. But I notice as I move about the study, turning off the lamps, that there's a trace of perspiration on your forehead. Does it affect you? Just a little? Being alone with a madman and a gun? Night? What's taking place behind the steady eyes, Martin? You thinking? That would be fatal. It was my mistake, thinking too much. Watch me, Martin. That's right. Never take your eyes from me. I want you to keep watching me. For then you can't help but think about it.
What did you say?
I want you to think about it.
Think about what?
Whatever comes into your mind as you watch me.
The police will come here looking for you, Lacey.
Police?
You know that.
Why should the police want me?
Well, you killed a man.
Yes, but you killed a woman.
Now, Lacey, I can help you. I'll get you some of my clothes. Call a cab, get you to a small hotel somewhere where they won't recognize you, or care if they do. Now,
don't talk to me like that. Everybody talks to me like that. You just come along as me. We know this.
Lacey, it's just a matter of time.
Remember, Martin, I'm crazy. I'm not responsible for what I do.
You're as responsible as anyone. You know what you did when you killed Westland.
Now you're saying I'm not crazy?
You know what I mean.
I'm either responsible or I'm not. If I'm responsible, then I'm a murderer. If not, then Nicholas Westland's death was an unfortunate accident. But the question of my responsibility was all taken care of in court 2 years ago, remember? You testified against me?
I told the truth.
Did you?
Yes.
I was the only one that knew you were lying, Martin.
You knew I told the truth.
Where are your wife and your boy sleeping, Martin? Answer it. Go ahead, but hold the receiver up so I can hear. Go ahead.
Hello.
Mr. Avery?
Yes.
This is Lieutenant Creekmore, police.
What is it, Lieutenant?
Is everything all right up there?
Yes. Everything is all right.
You sure?
Yes.
Have you heard that Lacey Abbott escaped from Bellevue tonight?
Yes, I heard.
And you know about Nicholas Westland?
Yes.
Poor guy never had a chance. We thought Abbott was getting better, but...
Yes. Too bad.
The reason I called you, you know how Abbott feels about you. He may try to get you.
You think so?
He might try, but you don't have to worry, Mr. Avery. I have 4 of my best men covering the front and rear entrances to your apartment house.
Well,
if he shows up, we'll get him. Good night.
Aren't we very fortunate in having such a solicitous police force.
Look, Lacey, let me get you out of here. You go down to the second floor landing, and I'll call the men up from downstairs and tell them you're up here. See, that'll give you a chance to get out.
You didn't answer my question, Martin. Where are your wife and son sleeping?
In the back bedroom.
Through that door and?
Straight back. Down the hall.
And the nursery?
But why do you...
The nursery.
Just half of the bedroom.
Does she have black hair? Like Kate?
No. She's brown hair. It's almost blonde.
How old is your boy?
A year and 6 months.
Yes, I remember. Someone told me you were married while the trial, my trial, was in progress.
Yeah, that's right.
1 year for the trial, 2 years in the insane asylum.
I wish there was something that...
Oh, there is.
All right, what?
Just tell me. Why did you kill my wife? Tell me.
Now, be quiet. You're waking
Let me tell you a little story, Martin, a fantasy, a bedtime story.
Listen to me.
Once upon a time, there were two men who went into business together. Things went pretty well. The business prospered and things looked pretty good. Everything was 50-50. Each partner had 50% of the stock in the company. That's fair enough. Then along came a big bad menace. A corporation that wanted to buy them out at a nice round fat figure. One partner wants to sell, the other partner no. The partner that said no had a wife. Let's call her Kate. And it seems his stock was negotiable in Kate's name as well as his own.
If you don't...
Shut up. The partner that wants to sell, that's you, pulls a fast one while I'm out of town and gets Kate to sign away everything. But before I got back, she saw what you were doing. And right there, was where she disappeared.
No, you're kidding.
And I wonder who it was that saw to it. I wonder who it was that killed her.
You're still out of your mind.
It's just a fantasy, Martin. The fantasy that with your few well-chosen words at the inquest started them looking at me. Wondering about me, wondering why I was away. What I'd done with the body.
Lacey.
Such nicely chosen words. Such as, I'd noticed he hadn't been himself lately, but I just thought it was overworked.
Look, you've got to listen.
Thanks, partner. I do thank you, and I stand ready to repay you, Martin. Where's her body?
I don't know.
Martin.
Look, it was never proven she was dead.
Let's say it was taken for granted.
Give me the gun.
Advanced psychology. You must have been studying.
Give me the gun.
Response to the command, isn't that the way it goes? Response to the command sometimes works the impossible. The subject will sometimes obey your command against his better judgment.
Give it to me.
No, Martin.
Yes, it does.
Oh, you can be better than that. Come on, more noise, more, come on. Someone might come in and see. That's better. I knew you were going to jump me. You know I could have killed you.
Why didn't you?
You haven't told me what I've got to know.
What would you do if I walked over to that door and just walked out?
First, I'd shoot you in the shoulder. Or the leg. And maybe the other shoulder. I don't want you dead. Not yet.
Look, Lacey, I never harmed you. I swear that. I swear it.
Tell me, where is Kate's body?
I don't know.
Tell me.
I can't.
Through the door and down the hall.
No.
Just off the bedroom?
No, but not the boys. Lacey!
Tell me!
No, I can't. Lacey! Don't lock me in. Come back. Come back. Lacey, you can't. Anne! Get Johnny. Lock your door. Anne! No! No! Anne! Johnny! No! I'll tell! I'll tell! I'll tell! I'll tell! I'll tell!
In a moment, we continue with the third act of Suspense. A word of advice for those of you who suffer from acid indigestion, heartburn, or gas.
Do you know about the little white chaplet in the little green pocket roll? Just a-waiting for the moment when you need 'em to bring your acid indigestion under control. Tums are the little white chaplets in the little green pocket roll. Tums for the tummies, T-U-M-S. Bring relief quicker than you'd ever guess. Best for any kind of acid distress. Keep 'em handy in the pocket roll. Keep your tummy under Tums control.
The modern Tums formula has never been surpassed for effectiveness. Always carry Tums, 10 cents. 3-roll pack, $0.25. Or get the new 6-roll Tums pack with free metal carrier, only 49 cents. And now, starring Mr. Myron McCormick, Act 3 of Madman of Manhattan.
Nicholas Westland speaking. Yes, I know, sir. I'm glad you had the faith to play along with. Yeah, I know. It was pretty extreme. Here, I'll let you talk to Lieutenant Creekmore. Hello, Commissioner. Avery's wife and child are okay. I got a little scared when Abbott fired those 2 shots in the ceiling. Yeah, I know, but that's what got the confession out of Avery. I know he shouldn't have brought the gun. We didn't bargain on that. Yeah, we got it. It's all on tape. Listen, play it back, boys. I'm just playing a good part.
It doesn't matter now. Nothing matters now. You were wrong, Lacey. See, Kate came to me months before you took the trip. She wanted to leave you. She thought she wanted me. And it was her idea to sign the stock over to me. Everything. And I kidded her along. Why not? And then when you were away, she signed the stock over. And she found out about Ann and me. It doesn't matter now. I tried to talk to Kate. Argument. We had a fight. I didn't mean it. It was an accident. I killed her. I fixed it so they'd suspect you. That wasn't hard. It was better than I thought. You seemed to be out of your mind. Where did you put her? I kept...
That's not...
Until they...
You get it? Yeah, well, we'd never have cracked Martin Avery any other way. They wanted to release Lacey Abbott 6 months ago. Said he was as sane as I am, but I'm glad we waited till he had this worked out in his head. Yeah, he'll have my full report tomorrow. Good night. And thanks, Commissioner, for letting us try it. Well, Lacey, you should be feeling pretty good about all this. Your plan worked out great. You're clear.
What difference does that make? He said Kate came to him. Came to him.
Suspense, in which Myron McCormick starred in William N. Robson's production of Madman of Manhattan, written by Gilbert Thomas. In a moment, the names of the supporting players and a word about next week's story of suspense.
Money can buy many things, tangible things. It can also help buy many intangible but equally important things. Education, for instance. Today, our public schools are bursting at the seams with record enrollments. There are shortages of everything but pupils. Shortages of classrooms, of facilities, of qualified teachers. New funds must be found to help relieve the pressure on our public school systems if the nation's youngsters are to receive the first-rate education they need. They must not be threatened by second-rate standards. We must face up to the fact that better schools cost money.
Let's raise our sights and re-examine our standards. For complete information on how you and your community can make sure your children receive the first-rate education they need, write to Better Schools, 9 East 40th Street, New York 16. That's Better Schools, 9 East 40th Street, New York 16.
Supporting Myron McCormick in Madman of Manhattan were Doris Singleton, Carl Swenson, Barney Phillips, and Norm Alden. Listen. Listen again next week when we return with Frank Lovejoy starring in Death in Box 234. Another tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
The latest news follows, then Have Gun Will Travel on CBS Radio.
Mystery in the Air, starring Peter Lorre, presented by Camel Cigarettes.
All right, men. I guess that's all. Put him on the stretcher and take him to the morgue.
Oh, must I stay, Inspector?
For a while, Mrs. Bunting.
Oh, dear.
I need all the details for my report.
Oh, that such a thing could have happened here. Here in my own house.
Each week at this hour, Peter Lorre brings us the excitement of the great stories of the strange and unusual, of dark and compelling masterpieces culled from the four corners of world literature. Tonight, The Lodger, by Mrs. Belloc Lowndes. Peter Lorre is the lodger, and Ellen Bunting is played by Miss Agnes Moorehead. Mystery in the Air, brought to you by Camel Cigarettes. Experience is the best teacher. Try a Camel. Let your own experience tell you why more people are smoking Camels than ever before. Yes, let your T-Zone decide which cigarette you like best. Your T-Zone, that's T for taste and T for throat, is your true proving ground for any cigarette. So try a Camel on your T-Zone. Introduce Camel's rich, full flavor to your taste. Acquaint your throat with Camel's cool mildness. See if you don't decide, like so many other smokers, that Camel suit your T-Zone to a T.
Go on, Mrs. Bunting. You said you were looking for a lodger?
Yes, Inspector, we had to. But I never dreamed such a thing could happen here, to us. Why, it was only last Tuesday night my husband and I were sitting before our fire reading the newspaper about the latest murder. It was the fifth. By the Avenger. Yes, I remember saying distinctly. Robert, he could be the fellow standing next to you, or maybe the man you bump into. It's a terrible thought.
Yes, but it appears to me that the Avenger's too quick for the police.
And look here, it says this girl he got last night was like all the others, pretty blonde, and she'd just come from a music hall, exactly like all the rest of his victims. Oh, what a pity.
Ellen, have you stopped to think who fits that description perfectly? Our own Daisy.
Oh, shush, what a pretty thought, Bunting. It's a good thing she's with her aunt instead of here. London isn't a safe place for any girl now.
Just the same, I can't help thinking how fine it would be to have her here with us.
Well, there's no sense even talking about it. We just can't afford it.
I know that, Ellen, but I hope we could manage it some way.
How? How script myself half crazy trying to keep us going.
I know, Ellen. Well, don't you go worrying about it. I think we can...
Who do you suppose that could be?
Could it be someone looking for a room?
Oh, I wish it were. Then you could have your Daisy back. Well, I went to the front door, and when I opened it, there stood a man wearing a black cape and hat. He carried but a single piece of luggage. Good evening, sir.
I saw your sign. It says you have a room to rent.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, won't you come in?
Thank you.
Could I take your cape, sir?
No, I'm looking for a quiet room. But it should be very quiet.
Oh, we have that, sir. Just that. Above all, our house is quiet.
Good.
Your bag, sir. May I take it?
No, just show me the room, please.
Oh, yes. Yes, sir. It's right up these stairs, sir. This way. You see, sir, there's just my husband and me here, and we're ever so quiet. I'm sure you'll find this room to your liking. Well, here we are.
Yes, I think I like this room.
Yes, it is pleasant, isn't it? There's not many rooms with such pretty pictures, now is there?
I don't know, pretty pictures interest me very little. What I like about this room is it's the simplicity. I like the bareness. Yes, I think I'll take it. What is your name?
Mrs. Bunting, sir.
All right, Mrs. Bunting, I'll take the room.
Oh, yes, sir. And please let me help you with your luggage.
No, don't you touch it.
Oh, but I only wish to
I know. You only wish to help, Mrs. Bunting. It's just, forgive me. It's just that I'm weary. I'm very tired. See, I do a lot of studying.
Oh, yes, of course, sir, of course.
Well, anyway, you can see how few things I need. It's just what's in this bag. But this here's my favorite book. It's the Bible. Good book, Mrs. Bunting, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, indeed it is, sir.
Yes, it says, he brings them to their desired haven. Beautiful words, huh? And now at last I've found my haven of rest. Now, Mrs. Bunting, if I pay you 30 shillings a week for this room, that's satisfactory?
30? Oh, why, yes, sir. That'll be quite all right.
My name is Sleuth.
Mr. Sleuth?
Yes, Sleuth. Sleuth. Think of a hound, Mrs. Bunting, and you'll never forget my name. And here are your 30 shillings.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you. Would you be wishing anything now? Supper, tea, or...
No, nothing. Good night, Miss Bunting.
Yes. Good night, sir.
Please stop that. You hear?
Oh, sir, what did I do?
You were humming. That's music.
Oh, but I
Music is an instrument of sin.
Oh, yes, sir.
And you did tell me, Mrs. Bunting, that your house would be absolutely quiet.
Oh, but it is, sir. I didn't mean any harm. Believe me, sir.
I believe you. I'm sorry I spoke sharply. I know you're trying to be considerate and kind.
Oh, thank you, sir.
By the way, Mrs. Bunting, I think I would like some bread and some tea.
Oh, certainly, sir. I'll have it in an instant.
So he took the room, Ellen?
Yes.
He took the room at 30 shillings a week.
Yes, in advance. Oh, hurry now, Bunting. Is the water for the tea hot yet?
Yes, what a stroke.
Put the bread and the butter on the tray. I'll pour the water.
You know, Ellen, it's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Do you realise what this means? We can have Daisy back with us
Yes,
now.
I know. Hurry with it now, hurry.
Why, we can have her back with us
Now,
tomorrow.
the water and the tea, and I guess... Yes, it's all ready. Open the door, Bunting. I'll take it up to him right away.
There you go, old girl. First thing in the morning, I'm going to fetch Daisy and bring her home. Oh, it's a wonderful night, Ellen. Wonderful.
to know how the wickedness of folly...
Oh, why, Mr. Sleuth, you...
Yes? What is it?
Those pictures, those pretty girls, you've turned all their faces
Yes,
to the wall.
I've turned them to the wall because they are wicked and sinful.
Oh, but, sir,
Don't you agree, Mrs. Bunting, that everything wicked and sinful should be purged from the earth? Huh?
Yes. Oh, yes, I do.
I'm happy to hear that, Mrs. Bunting. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to leave.
Oh, but, sir, here's your tray.
Good night, Mrs. Bunting.
You know, for a moment I was stiff with fear. I set the tray down. He hadn't so much as noticed the light supper I'd prepared for him and rushed to the window to watch. He came out of our cottage and moved off down the street, his black cape swirling about him. Finally, he was lost in the fog, and I don't know why, but I stared after him for a long, long while. Well, I did the dishes and got ready for bed. I lay there thinking, and it was almost dawn before I had convinced myself that at most he was a trifle odd. And after all, paying 30 shillings, maybe he had a right to his strange ways. It was daylight when I was suddenly awakened by the newsboys shouting in the street.
Horrible murder! Read all about it!
At King's Cross last night. Avenger strikes again.
Slowly, I realized what the newsboys were shouting.
Horrible murder! Avenger drops its victim.
Oh, no!
Avenger at work again. Another girl falls victim to a knife. Avenger strikes again.
In a few moments, Mr. Peter Lorre will bring us the climax of tonight's Mystery in the Air, when Camels present Act 2 of The Lodger.
Any sports champion can tell you how true it is that experience is the best teacher.
Don Whitfield, for one, he's the world's outboard speed champion, you know. It's taking the turns around the marking buoys just right that makes that extra speed. And boy, how Don Whitfield worked out on that problem.
Don Whitfield recently said, "Experience is the best teacher in outboard racing and in smoking, too. Smoking whatever brands I could get during the wartime cigarette shortage taught me there's no other cigarette like a Camel." And many other smokers had the same experience. Yes, during the wartime cigarette shortage, when people smoked whatever brands they could get, then's when we all compared cigarettes, whether we wanted to or not. And then's when so many people decided that their tastes liked Camel's rich, full flavor, and their throats liked Camel's cool mildness.